What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Vicktory Life Legacy Podcast. I'm your host, Dwight Vick. Alongside me is my longtime host, not just on this podcast, but he jumps on the Vic 757 show, talking all things tech, which is going to be returning for a third season, working on getting some sponsorships with my cousin Mike. It has been a long time since Danny and I did this, but I feel like the break was needed. We go so hard. Danny does 106.7 The Fan, DC. He does stuff with me, does other features. He also has his own life and his own family. So, Danny, it is great to see your face. I know we still text and check in, but how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, buddy. It's great to see your face. It's great to hear your voice, and it's great to get back together to celebrate the start of football season again, my man.
Ooh.
I gotta say, it's been a really good summer for your boy over here in Richmond. It's been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of momentous things that have happened. I could give you a quick recap if you want.
Yes, please. That's what I want. We all
Yeah,
want
bro.
that.
Yeah, so it all started back in May when the youngest Nokes, Brady
Yes.
Nokes, Bill Nokes, as he's better known as, was the third Nokes to graduate from Virginia Tech. So he is
Yes.
officially a Hokie alum, and he has officially started his professional career in building construction. So he's a part of the real world now, buddy.
Nice. Nice, man. Nice.
We had a
Congratulations to him, man.
Yeah, and I know he appreciates that. I don't know if you've had the chance to meet the youngest Nokes, but I know you will at some point.
I will. I've seen pictures. We've talked about him for years, going back to
Yeah.
when you and I were doing stuff during COVID, and even before
Mm,
then, when you were hosting the joint with Kyle Bailey. But I'm familiar with the other young Notes, you and him.
yeah. You
He
know
likes to
him
come
well.
on. Yeah, I know him. That's my dude. You know what I'm saying? He even jumped on one of these, man, with us during those times
Yeah.
when we were confined to the house, man. But that is amazing. All three of you guys went to Virginia Tech, right?
Yep, all three. Yep. So he's the latest and greatest, if you ask me. He's also the only one of us that opted not to go into any sort of broadcasting. So probably the smartest thing to do, if you ask me, especially if you look at the state of where that industry is at. But man, we had such a good time celebrating him down in Blacksburg for the actual graduation. And then shortly after that, we went down to the Outer Banks, as we've been doing now for all 30 years of my life, and we celebrated him for a week down there as well. So that was going into June. And then exactly 1 month ago from the date that we're recording this episode, your boy crossed a major threshold as he turned 30 years old. I joined the Dirty 30 Club, Dwight. I'm 30 years old now. Old man.
Oh my, you ain't old, bro. If I could, I don't even. I mean, it's so crazy, man. I keep telling you. I remember me and Pearson. Shout out to Coach Pearson Prelo, coaches of safeties at Tech, my longtime friend, teammate. He did the pregame show with you for Virginia Tech. I jumped on with you guys, and me and him were giving you advice after the show and during commercials about like how fast life comes at you. Me and him in our 40s, man. It looks great. You look great. 30 isn't old, but I will say this. 30 is different from your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the obvious statement from people listening and watching right now. But at the same time, I mean, you tone 30, man, like it's just crazy because it's just like, yeah, I'm 30. You know what I'm saying? Like you feel like official. Like when I was in my 20s, I was an adult, but I feel like if I did something crazy, I could still say, oh, I'm 25, I'm
Mm-hmm.
26. You hit 30 is different. Next thing you know, man, you're gonna be in the 40-40 club. I can tell you
I
right now,
know.
that's when your body, your check engine light comes on a little bit more. You got to get more service. You know what I'm saying? You got to get more checkups, man. But
Yeah.
congratulations to you, man. We got to live every moment like it's our last, man. And I'm glad you and I are back on. This is a special time of the year, Danny. You and I have been doing this for a long time. Yeah, during COVID, we jumped on, man. We've had great run with this, man. You and I have been
Mm-hmm.
featured on this stuff. I love jumping on. You do 106, man. But just kind of, every year we kind of take a break after the season, and then
Yeah.
we come back right around this time in August, and we already know what this time represents. This is now football season,
Right.
and this is going to be a unique season. And before we get into our guest that comes to join us, we got a great show lined up. I want to get your thoughts on your beloved Washington Commanders because as I talked to you over the years, people that listen to us, even when you were doing the show in Blacksburg with Kyle, then you took over for Kyle, I would always say when we talked in the NFL how like I support the local teams in DC where I live in Northern Virginia, but I kind of was watching from afar with the Commanders because I could not fully support Dan Snyder. I'm not going to get into anything because he can't sanction us now. But I don't even want to get into my issues with him. I'm not trying to get sued, but
Yeah.
all jokes aside, man, you guys have new ownership. There's a new feel in DC, Washington, DC, Northern Virginia, Maryland, the DMV as we call it. Just, I mean, you know, what are you thinking? What are you and your family? You guys, for those watching, we can see you got the great man cave layout, and you support all the DC teams, but Washington Commanders is your baby. Like,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about all that, man?
Dude, I got to say, going back to April when it was first announced that it was happening, right? Because this has been a process that's been in motion now since I want to say November of last year. That was the first whiff that we got that Snyder had hired Bank of America. They were going to start exploring the process of actually selling the team. But as it's actually started to happen, it genuinely feels like there is a dark cloud that is being lifted off of a once proud NFL franchise. And I know that that sounds really cliche. It is. It's absolutely cliche.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exactly what so many of us Commanders fans are feeling in these days. And in the last couple of weeks since training camp has opened up, you've only seen that mentality, the way that people are fired up and genuinely coming back to the team displayed in the training camp attendance. When they've been opening up practices for the fans, it's been some of the biggest crowds that they've had in decades. So there's palpable excitement around this team this year. Palpable hype, I believe, is the phrase coined by some college basketball insiders and whatnot. But they obviously still have a lot to still figure out, right? Sam Howell at quarterback, what will he be like in his first real year as a starter? Does Jacoby Brissett have to come in and sort of pick up the slack a little bit? I could see either of those things happening. You know, Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson, good backfield. Does Gibson start to take some of the lion's share of the reps back this year? Because B-Rob was pretty darn good in his rookie season, especially after being shot and coming back just a couple of weeks later. So you've got all the answers that need to be figured out on the field, but off the field, dude, the support is returned. And I've seen videos. I've seen videos of Josh Harris and Mitchell Rales, two guys that are part of this new ownership. They're signing autographs, they're talking to the fans, and what they keep saying is, thanks for coming back. Thanks for coming back. And I think that's pretty cool.
No, I think it's great, man. And, you're in the 804, but you get up here all to Nova, and you grew up here all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It is just refreshing to just be focused on a football program. And then I know it's been a little bit of drama where you've heard reports about players, and referencing, some of the complaints about the new OC,
Yep.
And all of that. What's my guy's name from Kansas City?
Eric Bieniemy.
Eric Bieniemy, who did masterful work at Kansas City. Listen, I've always felt when those reports come out, it could be two or three players. They want to generalize this the entire offense. I think when you look at training camp nowadays with people like us that podcast, the bloggers, people that, there's so much access with Twitter and everything like that. There's not much to report other than, hopefully injuries, no injuries or different things like that. So you kind of get into this thing, okay, what can I report on? I really feel like if you play football or you cover football, most people are complaining during training camp. It'll be like euphoric, talking about maybe, there's a trade or someone new, like when Tom Brady went to the Bucks. But otherwise, it's a grueling process. It's hot. It's a grind. You're going against your teammates, and it's constant. You don't really have anything except inter squad scrimmages and preseason games, which you're just trying to play not to get hurt. And for those trying to make the team, to me, it's a non-story, but I think overall, Magic Johnson being affiliated with this program, seeing Magic Johnson in the locker room is crazy to me. As you mentioned, you turned 30. I'm older than you, significantly older than you. I'm your OG, I'm your big brother. And I can tell you, Magic Johnson, his post-NBA career is probably you can argue it's better than his playing career because of all the business savvy things he's been involved in, all the great things he's done for the community throughout this globe, the brand that he puts out with his businesses. To be affiliated with Washington, this is now it's just a great thing to see. But I do want to turn this conversation, and I want to transition into something that I know for me, I love, even though I love fantasy football, I got guys picked out I'm going to draft every year when I do the Hokie All-Stars, my fantasy football league. Um, I want to touch on college football.
Mm.
We are not only in a new season, but there is new movement. And it seems like, every month, every week, every day, there's new updates with the Pac-12, the Big 12. First of all, the Big Ten, I believe, I don't have it in front of me. I thought I had it out here for our show. I think the Big Ten now, when it's all said and done, will have 18 teams,
Yeah.
and the Big 12 will have 16 teams, or the Big Ten, something like that. Regardless, I mean, we have not talked about this for those listening and watching. Danny and I talk a lot. That's my brother, but we have not talked about conference realignment. So this is just, I'm getting ready to hear his opinion, just like everybody else, D. So, like, what are you thinking, man? Like, including what we're hearing about the ACC with Stanford and Cal and SMU.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What are
Mm-hmm.
you hearing, man? What are you thinking?
Well, I think that we are about to leave the era of the NCAA, and we are about
Mm,
to. This is what I've told my younger brother because we talk about this all the time. I think we're about to enter what's going to be known as the MINFL era, Minor League
mm.
National Football League. Okay, so what you have that's happening right now is a select few schools already that are tremendously more resourced and have major advantages over the schools that are now being put at a more disadvantage.
Yeah.
And it's not going to make things more competitive. So I
Mm-hmm.
think, talk about a dark cloud being lifted off of the Commanders. I think it left DC and settled over top of college football because it's already incredibly predictable. The
Yep.
college football playoff is not competitive. You have mostly the same teams in it every single year.
Every single year.
I'm actually waiting for somebody to give me a reason that it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I'm not an old school guy. Like, I know some people want to keep certain rivalries and nostalgia. I'll say this, man. I do think there's something to the rivalries that we have, because I think that drew the casual fans, and that drew people on a Saturday night primetime game or afternoon at 3:30. You might not have had a school you attended, you might not have gone to college, but you knew about this rivalry. The same way in basketball, you got people that never been to college that will root for Duke or North Carolina or Duke or Kentucky, because the casual fans like that watch the NCAA basketball tournament is what makes it go. The gambling, the small schools. With college football, it's almost like it's trying to hurt itself. It's trying to
Mm,
almost inflate. Like, on one end, I posted this on my Instagram story, how Colin Cowherd talked about how the Big Ten is truly cornering the market with having basically games all day into the afternoon to the evening tonight, adding Oregon and UNC. So if you're the Big Ten, when the Big Ten is ultimately done, or for now, when it's done with some of the new additions here in the near future, you're going to have Big Ten games because of USC and Oregon on at 1:30 in the morning and 12 o'clock at night. And you're going to have your primetime game with Ohio State or whoever Michigan's playing, or Penn State. Then you have your 12 o'clock game where Wisconsin is playing Minnesota. Then but at the same time, I mean, it's just crazy because the Pac-12 is pretty much done.
yeah.
Um, Stanford and those guys have to find a place to play. And if the ACC adds Stanford and Arizona, what's the other one? Stanford and Cal? Is that the other school?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Stanford and
okay.
Cal are still in there. There's 4 teams
We
left.
They are called the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Mm-hmm.
Atlantic. Um, I didn't really think it was a bad idea to add us in Boston College and Syracuse. I thought it made sense. I thought, Virginia Tech always made sense, as far as the geographical location.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, it is what it is, man. It's kind of getting out of hand. It's a lot going on between the portal, NIL, and now college football conference expansion. It's just it's crazy. And then there's a rumors Florida State has made it known they want out. They don't
Yeah.
like the ACC TV deal, which I think everybody's been unanimous in saying it's a bad TV deal.
True.
But I mean, at the same time, I mean, what does that really mean? Florida State, even though they are still a big time national brand, even though they've been down as far as on the field until here recently, they've been just as bad as Tech and other programs in regards to underachieving.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing how the brand and money are one thing, but winning games and being a reputable opponent is different. It's just crazy how college football has really become a big business between the NIL situation and everything going on, man. It's going to be an interesting time over the next several months. I think it'll be great when the season starts because it seems like once that happens, those things are on hold. But then again, every time I jump on Twitter, I'm seeing new rumors, new movement. Let me ask you this, D.
Hmm.
Um, Notre Dame, apparently, it's been documented and put out there that they have had a say in what the ACC does in regards to adding people. And keep people forget during the COVID year, Notre Dame jumped in the conference
Yeah.
just so they can have a conference. Ended up playing Clemson that year in the ACC championship. And as soon as it was over, they jumped out.
Yeah.
And I've told people they're the biggest pimps in the game because they have every sport in the ACC except football because they don't want to share that NBC TV revenue money. And
Yeah.
yet they have say so over what the ACC does. It's crazy.
I know, and I'm sure, by the way, for that COVID year that they jumped into the conference to play football that season, that they did get a share of the ACC revenue that year, which was
Yeah.
higher than what they normally get. I
Yeah.
guarantee that's exactly what happened because everybody was struggling during COVID. Everybody was trying
Yes.
to just get
Yes.
their fair share of whatever money was out there, whatever industry that you were working in back there in
Yes.
2020. It's crazy to think that that was 3 years ago, but yeah, Notre Dame sort of demanding things when they're not a full-fledged member of the ACC is very elitist and a pimp like. I think that's the perfect way to describe what Notre Dame has got going on. My big concern with this though, dude, and I'm sure it's a concern for you as well. And everything I said about the dark cloud being over college football, I believe all that. I believe that it's headed in a negative direction, but I'm just concerned with Virginia Tech. Are they going to get left behind? Is the
Mm.
ACC going to go the way of the Pac-12? Are we really just going to have like 2 or 3 super conferences in 5 or 10 years? Because I don't think that that's going to be good for anybody. But where does Tech end up after all of this? Do they stay in the ACC? Do Clemson and Florida State move on, and then Tech is and Miami maybe, and then Tech is one of the premier schools in the ACC? I just don't know.
Yeah, I remember. It's funny. I've been I mean, yeah, you as well. I've been through this before when the Big East was technically imploding, and the ACC was adding teams, and Virginia Tech was part of the lawsuit. And the next thing you know, the governor
Yeah.
put pressure on UVA, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll have our guy Ahmad Hawkins on here shortly to talk more about UVA and ACC. But and then we luckily got involved and we dropped the lawsuit and we joined. I always felt, man, even though it was great to be part of a conference like the ACC that made sense as far as all our sports, including Olympic sports, I felt like the Big East was disrespected because during that time, I was part of that. I was part of the growth of the Big East. The Big East, those teams then were good. Miami won, I believe, it definitely won, if not two national champions during that time there. Virginia Tech played for a national championship. Syracuse had Donovan McNabb and Marvin Graves and all those guys and Marvin Harrison and so many
West
great
Virginia was pretty
players.
good too.
West Virginia was good every year. They were ranked. They were right there with Tech.
Yeah.
Boston College was really good. They were ranked and they were going to bowl games, excuse me. It was a good football conference. And I think
Mm-hmm.
because it was formed basically for basketball, football came later. It was viewed as, a conference that just wasn't adding up. But I feel like those teams in it, including Virginia Tech, were good. But then when the ACC formed, it looked like it made sense. I think the root of all this is money. To me, I've been asked, and I'll go on record on our own show to say that I really look at Tech right now, and if I have a choice, if we're left in a mediocre or a ACC without Clemson and Florida State, and we have some other schools or whatever in it, it is what it
Mm-hmm.
is. To me,
Mm-hmm.
man, I am so desperate for us to be relevant again.
Yeah.
I need wins. I know that doesn't really add up from a business standpoint. But I feel like sometimes fear and anxiety kind of make you overthink or overassess certain things. Not saying you're doing that, but I feel like Virginia Tech needs to be in a situation where they can win games. I
Yeah.
mean, I hear all the talk about. I know there was years ago we had a chance to get into there was rumors, quote unquote, for those listening. We had a chance to get in the SEC. I was definitely excited about that. But looking at what happened after Beamer left, I mean, if we win the SEC, maybe after Stroman and the Edmonds brothers graduated, we would have been fine. But after they graduated, we would have been toast. We were not a good
Mm.
football program. Our brand took a hit under Fuente. This is well known, well documented. The recruiting was terrible. We were a bad program. And yes, you're in the SEC playing Bama, Tennessee, you're getting money, but I want to be playing in relevant New Year Day bowls. I want to be playing. I want to be having a chance to get in the playoff. You know, it's funny, man, because my son's 17, and you talk to a lot of kids that are young in Virginia. They know Virginia Tech has been able to be a great program, but it's all historic perspective. It's not, oh yeah, Virginia Tech played in this game. They look at
Right.
they think Clemson has always been the class of the program. They don't realize in 2004 until 2012, Virginia Tech was the class of the ACC.
Yeah.
Lauren Johnson, our friend who's been on the show, who I played with, the head coach of Highland Springs, talks about how his Springers, he had to explain to them that Virginia Tech was the program. But it's tough, man, because when you're rebuilding and trying to repair your brand and your image, and you're trying to stay afloat in a conference that may be dissolving, man. One thing I will say, and we'll talk about this more later in the show with Pride, we talk about Virginia Tech. uh, we got to get it together.
Yeah.
Um,
They got to
we're
start
having
winning football games.
yeah, we got to
Yeah.
start winning games.
Yeah.
Because the business is going to take care of itself, man. I know we got a few more minutes before I guess John. So, you gonna add something to that, Danny?
Well, yeah, I just, it like I think everything you're saying is spot on per usual. And, I think there's a lot that can be said that comes with winning football games outside of just the money, right? If you're a school like
Mm-hmm.
Virginia Tech, or I mean, if you're a school like even like a Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh's been more relevant in the ACC recently, whereas they don't necessarily have that historical claim that a team like Virginia Tech was, but they've been better. They've kind of capitalized off of Virginia Tech not being as good, right? I think teams like that, though, you sort of need to win games and build that momentum, build that confidence within your program and your players. So as they go through the rest of the season, they have a little bit more confidence when they go toe-to-toe with Clemson and Florida State and the teams that are perennial. Well, Florida State not as recently, obviously, although they could be back in the ACC championship this year. And we'll
Mm-hmm.
find out pretty early on, I think, because I believe September 23rd is when they play Clemson. But once you build
Mm.
up some confidence and some momentum, then you can start to play with those teams. Like, go back to 2016. I mean, Justin Fuente has no business being a Division I head coach, right? He's just not prepared for that responsibility. He couldn't recruit. He didn't want to recruit. He didn't want to connect with people. He didn't want to do anything that goes along with being a Division I head coach. But he still had Virginia Tech driving down a touchdown on the last drive of the game against Clemson with a chance to, at the time, knock off the would-be national champions, right? I mean, that's the best Tech team that we've seen play in the last 10 years at least, and that's not saying much because going back to 2013, they really just haven't been very good. But that was a good team. I think we can both recognize that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's what I mean. Like, college football is just much more so a game of momentum than the National Football League, than pro football is. Once you get that momentum rolling, it's a lot harder to stop it in college than it is in the pros. And I think programs like Virginia Tech can capitalize on that sort of thing. It's hard when you start to talk about all the financials and all the moving parts and all the stuff that happens behind the doors and them missing out on going to the SEC, if that was even a real thing a few years back, right? I remember those rumors too, because I that was when I was in school. I'm pretty
about
sure.
to say, weren't you in school during that time?
Yeah, I joined a group that said Virginia Tech to the SEC on Facebook. I did because I was ready to see it happen. But it's just a weird state. And the other thing is I think everybody's kind of trying to navigate this to some degree, right? Because there aren't a ton of guidelines around NIL, the transfer portal, or conference realignment right now. So in some ways, you just got to stay afloat through all of this. And then once we get out on the other side, who knows? Then we'll see, and
Yeah,
then figure
yeah,
it out.
yeah. You make up a good point. We'll have to talk about this in depth more on a different day, man. But the NIL thing in the portal, I don't really know if they need a cap, but I've been asked in recent months, especially having a son who's a prospect who plays high school basketball with, most likely going to play college basketball next year. Um, I feel like there should be a systematic approach governing the NIL and the portal. I'm all for kids getting paid for their name, image, and likeness.
100%.
Just a reminder to people listening and watching this online. I had a tweet that got a lot of attention. I even took it to Facebook about how much guys would have made
Oh,
if, like NIL was out during the era. Guys like Tebow, of course, my cousin Mike
your
Vick,
cousin. Yep.
Cam Newton, Rocket Ismail, of course,
Johnny
Bosworth,
Football.
RG3, Johnny Football. I just watched this documentary. That was
I need to.
phenomenal.
Yeah. I
The
haven't
thing
seen it
about
yet. I
it
need
is
to.
that oh yeah, you definitely would enjoy it. They would have made a lot of money. But the thing about it is that I'm not saying you cap what they make, but like there has to be a governing type situation. I think order and structure is good for everybody. And I think with the portal, a lot of young men are hurting themselves. You talk about how you were in a group chat, a group thing on Facebook, and how, um, you were young then. I was young too.
Yeah.
Like I remember,
Yep.
like I joke all the time. Like when I used to get my college scholarship per diem or money, my refund or whatever, where I would get money when we went to bowl game. The first thing I did was run to, the mall. I remember going to college seeing mall before they tore it down in Hampton, or even shoot, early in my 20s when I lived in Fair Oaks and I lived in Fairfax. Anytime I got paid, I gave Shanice half the money for our rent for our apartment. We lived over in Windsor and Fair Lakes. And then I would run to Fair Oaks Mall and Springfield Mall, the old Springfield Mall that looked like gangland. And I would be up and I would be in there just getting shoes. I got the Gary Payton. I was just getting shoes and getting different things.
All right.
And I was just not great with money. Nobody, I had been taught how to save money, but I was young. So I'm glad these guys are getting paid. I'm glad that they're understanding their worth. But I think the portal, a lot of guys, like you think about this, man. A lot of those kids I named just now, Cam Newton, Mike, guys like Trevor Lawrence, they play right away. But guys like Mike Vick, people talk about him and all these guys. Some of your best players in college football history waited their turn. They
Yeah.
redshirted. They even sat their redshirt freshman year, or they played some, and then
Or
they
they
became that
transferred.
player. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, man, it was one of those situations where um, they came on the scene and they were good and even better because they waited their turn and they were able to learn while they wait. So, the NIL thing, the transfer portal, it's just one of those things, man, where um, I think there has to be some structure to it. I'm all for it, but I think there has to be some kind of parameters or guidance on what to do. I'm not saying they need to get rid of it like some of these old school guys are saying, but I definitely want some structure around it, man. But enough about that. We are blessed to be joined by my teammate from high school and longtime friend, my little brother, in a positive way, not sonning him, but this is my little brother. I love him like family because he is family. One of the best players in Hampton High history, arena football history. Petty Hawk, he's got his show, he's got the Petty Hawk gear, with the UVA ambassador, the guy that broke my heart on senior day. Ahmad Hawkins. And yes, for those YouTube, the 98 UVA Tech game, and you will see why, if you're a young guy listening or watching, why he broke my heart. But it was a
Mm-hmm.
bittersweet day. But this is my brother, man. I'm so proud of this guy. Every time I get a chance to get on, I'm gonna get him on. Hawk, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Apologize about being late. Yeah, had some technical difficulty. I don't know what was going on, but I was here, but it
Oh,
just went
okay.
load up.
No, it's all right, man. It's all good, man. This is the first show Danny and I've done really since the season kind of ended, man. We've done a few, but we took a break and
Mhm.
we're doing a preview, man. We just talked some commanders. We talked about, the ACC conference realignment, tech football. And I want to get you on, man, because you cover UVA, but you cover all things sports. And that's one thing I love about you. You're insightful, man. I'd rather get it from someone who's covering UVA camp. I want to hear what's going on with, Coach Elliott, and just get your thoughts so far, man, because I know I was a huge Armstrong fan. He had the portal, so I'm not even sure what's going on. I got to get caught up even with my own teams, but how are things been so far down in Charlottesville, man? How's camp been going so far?
It's been going well, man. It's a big transition moving on from Brennan Armstrong, dynamic quarterback who transferred to NC State. So he's reuniting with Coach and I, then Coach 2J. My offensive line coach also went to NC State. So we welcome Coach H from Stanford. So he's making the transition, and that voice is different for the guys up front. So he's learning guys, they're learning him. And we got a lot of moving parts up front, and that's the one position, as you know, you play. I haven't met a football team yet that's good or great despite being trash up front. Like you could be okay and average and still be good, but if you trash, you ain't gonna do too well. So it always starts up front, especially for our program. Like anytime UVA football has been very good and competitive, it started up front offensively and defensively. Our defensive line, we like 8 guys deep. I mean, like really, we got depth there. Those guys are older guys. They like 22, 23. It's almost like we're at BYU, with the age there.
Yeah.
That COVID year. Yeah. So, they've been learning. They've been learning going against that defensive line. So that's the gift and the curse, right? It's like you could get frustrated, but they got to understand it's one of the better defensive lines that they'll face all year, in my opinion. So up front, we're just trying to get acclimated. Tony Musket's done a good job. He's pretty much been seamless, man. Like, believe it or not, I know he comes from a quote, smaller school, but he has a lot of tools. He's more athletic than what we thought. He surprised me with his leadership, his poise back there. And that's basically it. Outside, we got some playmakers. We got 2 freshmen, I think, that's going to do very well. That's going to jump out, when the season starts. I don't want to give people too many insight.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, what's funny?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's funny? I said Petty Hawk's been active on Twitter over the last couple of weeks because a lot of people have UVA pegged as, and I'm just stating facts here, okay?
Yeah.
The media picked UVA to finish last in the ACC this year, and I saw at least one other person from, I think it was Barstool, say that he expects UVA to potentially be the worst team in
I saw that, dude. I saw that.
Worst in Power 5.
Yeah, that seems a little harsh. Hawk, what do you think?
Yeah, it's very harsh, man, and we're in the era of hot takes, and UVA is easily the easy team to pick on as far as hot takes. Salute to that individual because I bookmarked him.
Yep.
And he better hope that we ain't one team above the most trashiest team in Power 5 because I'm going to light him up. He going to think we won the championship, how much I'm going to light him up. Matter of fact, I want to be on his show so I can light him up, because he got after us. And then he tried to say, Virginia Tech's not good. No, wait. You give them the same vitriol to give Boston College the same vitriol. He really kicked us while we was down.
Well, it's crazy, Hawk. What's crazy is I was actually I was on Twitter one night, and I stay on Twitter like you, and I'm on there, man. And I was like, what? I seen like, because the Tech fans, you and I don't get involved in it, but like OG Who, shout out to him, all those guys, Brandon Lloyd and the Tech fans, Tally and all my guys, they be going at it, having fun and talking trash. I didn't see it, and I seen somebody retweeting it. I think it might have been Hokie Pharmacy. I was like, oh, what is this? And I clicked on it, and I was like, damn. Like, is he trying to get that Colin Cowherd type take? It's just funny to me because rivalry aside, I'm like, worst Power 5? Like, that's a hard statement, man. But you're right about the hot take, man. But on the field, man, I've always felt I've said this about Virginia Tech here in recent years, Boston College, UVA. That's why, I was a Brennan Armstrong guy. I always felt like in college football and the NFL, if you have a quarterback, the O-line and D-line win games, the LOS, the line of scrimmage, but if you have a quarterback that can make plays, you're going to be in every game. And Brennan Armstrong definitely made plays. I felt like last year was tough for him. because of the O-line and the fact the OC was gone. But the quarterback position, I feel like UVA, when they've had quarterbacks, they're right up there in the top of the ACC. You know, when they have a quarterback, that can make, like my guy Perkins was
Yep.
dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like y'all have that guy? I know it's tough, it's August, but we're 20 something days away. Do you feel like he can eventually be that guy? Tony Elliott came, to UVA with a lot of high praise of what he did in Clemson as the OC, and all the offensive weapons they had. Do you feel like, he's still trying to figure out the identity and what he has, or do y'all have that? I know you can't give all your secrets, but
Yeah.
what's going on with that?
I think so. You're absolutely right when it comes to our program and the quarterback position. Like they go hand in hand. The better our quarterbacks can perform, the better our team roll and the better confidence we have. But last year's team was like an old school UVA team as far as the defense was stout, very, very stout. And that was the one area that everybody was worried about because offensively we had all that talent coming back. And nobody, foresaw like 50 drop passes. As much as a lot of folks take the easy target, and that's the offensive coordinator. Look, if you're offensive coordinator at UVA, you're going to be the whipping child, like from Steve Fairchild to Anai to now Coach Kitchens. Like, you catch it here. And I'm going to just be honest with you. But one thing I went back and I did this summer, man, and like you guys, I took a step away from just recording. I really got into the classroom and just started watching film, and like, all right, it's narratives. I'm going to see if this narrative is true, if it's fake. And when it came to Kitchens, here's how I evaluated him. Even though I don't like the play call or guys open. And if guys are open and you're not catching the ball, I can't put that on him. Like, even if it's 4th and 1, you take a shot. If that dude behind him and it's a bad throw or you bobble it or we fumble, like, at the end of the day, man, I felt like since they were so successful in that air raid, people think it's so simple to just bite somebody's style. It's like, oh, I'm going to just use their playbook. And I always tell, and if you're a gamer, if you play Madden and you got your playbook and somebody be like, all right, man, we playing randoms and you can't pick your favorite playbook, you're not going to know what to do the first couple quarters because you're used to your playbook. So that's how I approached it with Coach Anai. Oh, you should just do what Coach Anai did. Like, yeah, you can on the surface, like, you can script out the first 10 plays and bite off Coach Anai. But what happens in situational football? Are you going to know which play within that scheme to call to be successful? Because you're not relying on your instinct. You're relying on the instinct of somebody else's playbook. So, this is year 2, new quarterback, new weapons on the outside. I will say this. We're not as talented in those positions, but it's more buy-in. So guys are executing better because they don't have that resume to say, hey, I got a better way. Let's do it like we did it this way. So that's what you're going to see. Again, we don't have the talent or the explosiveness that we had because, Dontavian was explosive. Lavelle, the Arab there, rest in peace to my guy. He was explosive.
Yeah.
Keaton Thompson. You had Billy Kemp, who's at Nebraska right now. Like, that's 4 dynamic receivers.
Oh, right, Kemp's at Nebraska?
Yeah, he's at Nebraska.
Man, he was a dog. He from the 804. He played for my boy Lauren Johnson, man. He was feisty too.
Yeah,
yeah, he was feisty, man. Look, he was. I mean, every time I never seen him smile, man.
Well,
damn, man. Yeah.
Hawk, the thing I think that is most stacked against UVA this season is the first 4 games of the year, right? I mean, it's a brutal start for the Cavs between number 12 Tennessee, the team that just won the Orange Bowl last year, beat Alabama in probably the game of the year. They obviously lost a lot of those guys, but they're going to be darn good again this year, and you got to go play them in a pro stadium to open the season. JMU, Maryland, and NC State to get the rest of your first 4 games on your belt. That's hard, man. But I'll say this, and Coach Beamer would definitely agree with this. Those early season tests could pay off later on in the year.
They definitely can, and that's the scary part because we're still trying to galvanize and bring our fan base back up and sell out and get butts in the seat and have them just as enthused as I am every year. So you start out at Tennessee, and that's very tough with a new quarterback, and they have a quarterback who they think is the next AR-15.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, this kid is dynamic, can throw the air out of the football. We saw him come in when Hooker got injured.
Yep.
So, and then you got JMU, the most successful university in the state of Virginia
Yep.
in the past couple of years. And that's
Mhm.
including the big boys, which is Virginia Tech and UVA. Like,
UVA.
we got to concede to them. And we
Yep.
got them here, our first home game. And then we go to an old school rivalry in Maryland that these kids don't know nothing about. And then you got
Yeah.
Brendan Armstrong, who got this game circled, returning
Oh, boy.
on the fourth game
First-
of the year.
Yeah, first ACC game.
So one thing I learned from Bronco Mendenhall, man, salute to Coach Bronco Mendenhall. I learned a lot from him, just from the strategic way of galvanizing the program. Scheduling works hand in hand when you're trying to rebuild and ascend. And right now, and this reminds me of the Mike London era, where it was playing the Oregons and the UCLAs, and it looked good, but then it was taking, it was belt to butt. And then the fans like, oh, we not good versus.
Yeah, man.
And you know what I'm saying? We need to play teams that you can build that confidence. And we all play. So it's like, no disrespect to them, but we used to play like Richmond or Buffalo early. Like, you'll get them early cupcakes to get rolling, get out of the hole, be 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, and you get some confidence. And then when you get into a tough game, you're relying on, we've been winning, we can win, versus when you losing and something go wrong, you like, here we go again.
Hey, Hawk, let me speak on that real quick because I got a question for you, but I'm glad you said that. I understood what Bronco Mendenhall said because I agree with it. Everybody in Tech was killing me when I said, y'all all hyped for this racetrack game in Tennessee, most watched game ever. And I was like, what's the point if you ain't going to win? You know what I'm saying? To me, my whole thing is like, yeah, the level of program we at, I'll take a Furman because right now we don't have the D Hall. We might starting to get them back now because we got a coach that's trying to recruit the state again in the Mid-Atlantic. But before, those guys you mentioned not understanding the rivalry. I remember the UVA Maryland rivalry. I remember when Tech joined the ACC. The Maryland UVA Maryland Tech rivalry is real, especially with UVA and Maryland because they're members. They've been there from day one. That game, but the players may not understand that. And to me, winning is a good thing because you learn how to win. I'm gonna tell you who's been using that formula very well. Two teams in the ACC have been doing it, and the perception has changed for them is that Wake Forest and Duke are doing that. Duke is playing,
Yes.
I think they might be playing 2 HBCUs a year.
Yep.
And Wake Forest is doing the same thing, and all of a sudden, oh man, they're 5-1, and the players are buying in, and the fan base and the national media thinks there's momentum. When they win in games, they're supposed to win. And anyway, I didn't mean to go on, but I just want to ask you this, Hawk. And this might be unfair to you, but I think you can handle it because you're well connected, man. How is everybody in Charlottesville, man, handling the UVA tragedy that happened? We didn't play you guys for the first time in forever. And, I have a lot of people that were connected to that tragedy. I mean, how is the community recovering? How is everything going on down there? The football program, are they still carrying the legacy for those gentlemen? Just what are your thoughts on that? How's it going on down
Yeah, it's been trying times. Those young men meant a lot to not only the program but to the city. Just great, outstanding young men in their own way, and it's definitely been tough. Initially just going back to practice, and then you seeing somebody wearing number 1 or somebody wearing 15 or somebody wearing 41. And ironically, Deshaun, his old teammate, which is one of our kickers here, has his number. Lavelle, a kid that comes from his high school that's playing receiver, has his number. So it's amazing how the universe works. And, it's just one of the things where I said this to somebody. I was like, everybody's like, oh, yeah, we could use those 3 guys as motivation, and we could, it'd be, just uplift you when times are tough. I said, but the one thing you always got to realize is you got to taper that emotion, because you don't want that emotion to get the best of you when you get into the game and you just flip your lid. because you're thinking about them so much that you just crash out. So you always got to taper it and channel it in a positive way. Channel it in a way of, if you're getting tired or if you're getting discouraged, you think of them. And that keeps you going. And look, man, we got a hero on the squad that helped one of his brothers in Mike Hollins, and who got injured in that ordeal. And just seeing him every single day, just on that practice field, is a true inspiration. But their legacy will never be forgotten. We'll always show remembrance to them. It's just unfortunate that life was cut short, but we making it, man. We getting better each day. I'm not over it yet. I still think about Lavelle a lot, Deshaun a lot. D. Chandler, I was still building a relationship with him, but between D. Perry and Lavelle, man, those are my guys. So it's definitely something that each time I go to practice, I think of them. So I'm pretty sure those young men do the same thing.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. Danny, did you want something? Did you want to add something?
No, I'm obviously I remember when that news broke late last year, and the first thing that I thought of, Hawk, when I saw that was obviously how horrible a tragedy it was, and the face value that I think everybody saw it for. But I immediately thought of how the UVA community reacted when the shooting took place on campus in Blacksburg in 2007,
Yep.
and the support that they showed. So my mind immediately went there. Support them however they can, however we can as Hokies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because Hokies and Who's, we're all Virginians, right? So
yeah,
and at the end of the day, it's we get to talk ball here, and those guys get to go on the field and play and represent our schools, and that's all well and good. But at the end of the day, life is the most precious thing that there is. So that was just kind of how I felt when all that went down. And I know that I see the numbers in the diamonds that they have,
yes,
in pretty much every video that they put out. I think it's a great way to honor them. So I'm interested to see what they do to honor them going forward the rest of the year too.
Think about
we
those guys
definitely
all the
appreciate.
time. No, go ahead, Hawk. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We definitely appreciate Hokie Nation, man, for just their outward support. I just remember, vividly the women's basketball team, Virginia Tech women's basketball team, just donning their numbers and paying respect. Here's the one thing I really love about sports. No matter how much somebody may troll on Twitter or talk trash on Twitter on those platforms, nobody loses sight that we still human beings, and at the end of the day, it's just a child's game. So I definitely appreciate that when guys reach out. And Petty Hawk said, don't allow that love to confuse you. I'll still serve you some juice when I need to. No, man.
He's got to get that in there.
I love
you
it.
gotta
Hey,
get that in there.
listen,
Sometimes you get too serious and people, you get too serious and people are like, oh man, I'm getting somebody cutting onions. Like, all right, let me go ahead and crack a joke.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, man, before we let you go, Hawk, I do want to talk about something that's dear to you. You've inspired me. Danny just turned 30, and I be laughing at him talking about you old. And I'm like, you turn 40, your check engine light come on a lot more. So even after we record this show, we finish recording tonight, I'm gonna get up and go work out in my garage. Like I gotta stay in, I got to. But Hawk, you've inspired me. I've shared it in my story, and a lot of people in the Charlottesville community, your fitness program that you're involved in, man. The push-up challenges, the running, I think is absolutely wonderful. Between you, Nas, the rapper, one of the best rappers, and I can't remember the other guy, but and the guy from Power, Lorenz Tate. I don't think you guys ever age. I don't think you, Nas, or Lorenz Tate ever. And I think it's because you are in great shape. You are constantly running. You run your mouth on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Calories
and
always burning.
Yeah, and you always. But on a serious note, man, just share, how people can get involved in the community, man. What is that all about? What are you doing with all of it? Because that is actually, to me, you got a lot of accomplishments you've done, but doing this right now is inspiring. It's just reminding that we got to get out here and move, man. Just talk about that, man.
Oh man, so to give you the short story, once I retired from football in 2013, I had to fill the void. We play a very physical and a very physical game that you have to be a maniac to be a part of. quote unquote car crashes every play. And I'm just a skill guy, so I ain't even hitting that much like you was.
Right.
But I keloid myself to always be prepared for that chaos and that nastiness and being a sick beast like Coach Mann used to tell us.
Mm-hmm.
So once I stopped, man, my mental health like started spiraling. Like I really struggled. So my family got the brunt of it because I was just mean a lot and moody because I had nothing to. I always use football to channel any frustration or anger. Fast forward to COVID, and so that's years of struggling with that. Fast forward to COVID, Prolific Crew had already started, but they probably had like 10 to 12 people running. They hosted like a 4-mile event, a 4-miler, and I started preparing for that on just a challenge. Will, who's my barber, who's one of the founders, just challenged me like, "Ball Hawk, man, come run the 4-mile." I was like, "Man, I'm a sprinter. I don't do that running stuff." He was like, "Man, I think you'll like it. And about my third time preparing for that 4-miler, and this was like a month before, I just heard my big mama talking to me one day while I was running. And I just started shedding tears, and I just kept running because I just kept talking to her. And before you know it, I did over 4 miles. And every time I start to run, I'm talking to one of my deceased relatives, or I'm brainstorming ideas, or I'm having flashback with every song that's coming on and where I was at in Hampton. Was I on Shell Road? Was I on Big Bethel? Was I eating a big beef on Mercury? So I'm reliving my childhood every time I run, or I'm talking to a loved one every time I run. So I pound the pavement every day. So I can't punch the fist like Bushwick Bill did, and mine's playing tricks on me. So I use my feet as fists. So I run every single day as a part of mental health, and it helps me. It's like taking a B12 vitamin. It's like a mood enhancer. Like once I run, I'm in the greatest mood. I'm operating on clarity. And then I just started doing push-ups because I don't really lift like that anymore. So I just started saying, "Yo, let's get your reps and let's get active." Like somebody, if I just say, "Hey," I always see people challenging folks on Twitter. I said, I won't videotape myself and just say, "Yo, let me get 10 to 15 push-ups. I don't care." Or 25 or 30. If somebody say, "Man, you ain't extending your arms." I said, "Well, show me. You do a video and you extend your arm. How many? As many as you want." Because people always say, "How many are you doing?" I said, I don't know how many I'm doing. But people don't realize for each mile that I'm running, I'm doing 25 to 30 push-ups. So I average 4 to 5 miles a day minimum. Like if I do anything under 4 miles, I feel like I didn't do nothing. And that's what I'm programmed to do. So when people see me at the end, I've done over 100 push-ups already, but it's just one of the things that the Lord put something on my heart to just say, "Hey, talk about this." And sometimes it don't make sense, but you know what I'm saying. If that makes sense.
I know it makes sense to me though. If I had a nickel, Hawk, for every time that I saw "Get Your Reps In" is the first thing that hits the top of my Twitter feed
Danny,
every morning,
ain't it? Yes,
I'd
Danny.
be rich. But I love it. I'm like, man, there he is, Hawk's out there. He's chiseled, he's sweating.
Yes,
It's not even 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just getting out of bed.
Hey, you know, I had a lady tell me Saturday, she saw me downtown Charlottesville, and she go, Ball Hawk. And I look, I said, "Hey, how you doing?" She was like, "Oh, I thought that wasn't you because I only ever see you with a headband." And people don't know that's actually Tyrod Taylor's brand that I wear, the orange.
Sure is.
Headband is
nice.
Tyrod Taylor's. Yeah, so I always keep either Tyrod Taylor wearing his or we're sitting on my chest. So I'm representing my home at 757 every time I step out. So, again, that hokey stuff don't really bother me that much because Tyrod went to Virginia Tech, but that's my brother. I love him. So I'm gonna wear his brand.
Yeah, we confuse people with that because Elton Brown, Shannon Taylor, Aaron Brooks, so many. Maybe like, man, what are you doing? I said, man, these are my brothers, man. You know how long I've known these dudes? We went to battle Donnie Green, and we talk trash, but I think for fans it's always been different, man. But I tell
But
you
you
this
always
all the
want to kick
time.
your brother's butt, though.
Yes,
If one
yes.
person you want to beat, so people always got to realize people with siblings understand what we saying when that don't mean nothing because he my brother. I won't light him up. Like I'm really gonna get him because I'm gonna see him later.
Let me tell you, I mentioned when you came on. Let me tell you, the words you were saying when you scored that. I was on the other side. I heard you, bro. You was talking to the fans, because I was running my mouth that day. I was talking because I circled that game, bro. Because Anthony Poindexter and those guys, man, I remember they beat us up. Aaron Brooks lit us up my
Yep, the year before.
year before, man. And I remember my cousin Mike came in the locker room because UVA and Tech were both recruiting him, and he was like, "Damn, big cuz, that was a rough one." I said, "Man, we done lost Mike to UVA and everything, right?" And then the following, we came out, we jumped on him, man. I was running my mouth, man. And then
Yes,
Hawk
you
caught
were.
that pass. I was running my mouth, and I don't even really do all that,
Yeah.
but I just was, man. But I will say this, and we'll let you go, Hawk, in a second. But I think the nostalgia I have for that game and the year before, where both teams were ranked and all the in-state talent, I hope and pray that the new age fans can experience that because, right now, man, like all we doing is talk trash in two programs that need to get back to where they used to be and where they should be.
Yeah.
And I remember, being in my apartment back in the mid 90s when they beat your cousin Sean Hamlin, and that Florida State team was loaded in Charlottesville.
95. Yes.
95, and Tech was loaded
Yep.
that year, and the Tech UVA game that year was elite. It was special, it was sold out. And to
Was that
me,
the
I'm a
Joe
Virginia.
Trip game?
Yeah, what's that?
Was that the game where Banks got the pick and Joe Geek tried to trip him?
Nah.
Was that,
Yes,
that was
yes, yes,
96.
yes, yes. No,
Oh,
no,
it was
no, no.
95.
That was 95.
Okay.
That was the year
Okay.
95 when Banks got the interception.
Yeah.
And who was that coach that stuck his leg out trying to trip
Yeah,
him?
one of the coaches was a trainer, Coach Geek.
Oh, the trainer?
Joe Geek. Yeah. Uh-oh. Well, allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. Mike Tomlin did that too.
You know what I'm saying? Statute of limitation, man. So we good now. But yeah.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
Yeah, he
Nah,
caught a
man.
Charlie horse.
How can everybody keep what you got going on here? You took a break, man, but you are on the Twitter Spaces. Let everybody know, listening on SoundCloud and also watching us on YouTube. How can they keep up with you? Because you do everything. Yes, you a Wahoo, but you cover everything: boxing, battle rap. You got your paraphernalia. Just this quick plug on all the stuff you got going on and upcoming.
Yeah, man. Just follow me on Twitter at I am Ballhawk and also Instagram at I am Ballhawk. As Daddy stated, if you give me a follow, you're gonna get your reps video in the morning. But as far as like my media entertainment, you go to ahmadhawkins.com if you want to see any of the videos that I collaborate with UVA with the walkthrough series. We'll be starting that up soon. My podcast is sponsored now on Believe Network, and also still pushes out to Apple and Spotify. But shout out to Believe Network for coming to me and allowing me to be a part of that great team. And I'll be starting back up as Vic stated. I not only do college football with UVA, but a lot of like this time of the year is going to be a lot of UVA episodes. Don't get me wrong, but I will do some battle rap. I will do boxing. Shout out to Bud Crawford for what he did to Spence Jr. That was a phenomenal fight. And yeah, man, that's about it, man. Prolific Run Crew. If you're in Charlottesville area and you want to come run with us and be healed by the heels that are healed, come here at 6 a.m. And I tell you this, you'll never have more fun running 4.7 miles in the morning until you come run with the Prolific Crew. And you won't get tired because we take breaks. You won't get left behind. I'm one of the pacers, so I go back and forth. And we're going to make sure you reach your goal that day. And you're going to have the greatest feeling and the greatest day of work out there coming out with Prolific, the Prolific Run Crew, man. So that's what it's all about, man.
Yes,
so I
sir.
appreciate you guys for having me on, man.
All the time, man. Yes, sir. We'll have you on. Hopefully, man, there's no surprises. We can get you on the Vic 757 show again, previewing that UVA Tech rivalry with me and Mike and Danny coming on doing Nokes.
Absolutely.
So, man, thank you again, Hawk. I'm gonna be chopping up with you probably here tomorrow night or something tomorrow morning. But thanks for all you do. Thanks for the inspiration. We appreciate you, man. We love you. I always tell you I'm proud of you, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. Two guys from HBT and Bad News, doing what we're doing, man. You make a lot of people from home proud. So I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you, man. And, I know we're at rival schools, but if you're a Virginia Tech podcaster, I'll support you. I'll come on your show. Like, I have no qualms. I support any podcaster out here. I don't let that allow me to lose sight of how much we need to support each other and continue to elevate each other brands and not thinking that we competition, because it's enough for everybody to be great here in
Yes.
this lane. So appreciate you, Danny, man. That the words mean a lot, man. That my videos help you, man, because
absolutely.
That's just my way of I'm documenting my therapy and being transparent and my most vulnerable. So I don't want folks to think I'm just out there and it's easy, because every time I'm doing that first mile, I think it's the stupidest decision I made all day.
Hey, Danny not lying though, yo. Every time, literally, when I get up in the morning, I say, let me look, and it's the first thing I see, bro. It's Hawk like this. Wait, and then I was like, God, let me go over here to Lifetime, man. I was getting ready to go get a sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit. Let me go over here.
Hey, man, it don't matter. Hey, you could do the rest. Why you taking a bite? Change the game.
Yeah. We appreciate you, Hawk, man. I'll be talking to you soon, like we always do. Thank you so much, man. Keep doing your thing,
brother.
Man.
Salute to y'all, man. Love what y'all doing, and anytime you need me, just let me know, man.
Absolutely,
Wahoo,
man.
before I leave, though.
Had to get that in too. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, bro.
Oh man, that's Ahmad Hawkins, everybody. Ahmad Hawkins, man, one of the Hampton High UVA greats, man, my longtime friend and teammate, man. Just really, really, can you hear me, Danny?
I got you loud and clear,
yeah.
bud.
Yeah, man, just really proud of that guy, man. It's crazy, man. I'm in my 40s, man. I've known that guy since I was a teenager, man, like 15, years old, man. Now that you think about how long that is, man. So
yeah,
I'm extremely proud of what he's doing, man. And I'm glad he's covering UVA and even other sports, man, because he's got great insight, man. We didn't have him on for that segment, but he is great, man. But we're gonna keep this thing rolling, Danny, man, because another guy joined us, man, who I'm extremely proud to call a friend. Also a guy in the podcast and sports business like you. Matt Hatfield is getting ready to join us, man, once everything comes in, man. This guy is somebody I always text him if I got a question on high school sports. And I don't mean just football and basketball. I'm talking about if you want to know a backup point guard at Madison High School in Fairfax. I mean, he's in the 757 where I'm from. But joining the show on the Vicktory Life Legacy Podcast is the one and only Matthew Hatfield, man. Somebody I love. Matt, how you doing, boss?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you, Dwight and Danny. And it just means if I know the backup point guard for the Warhawks, I have no life. That's all it really means.
It's a passion, Matt. All it is a passion that you've turned into a job.
You ever watch the TV show Monk with Tony Shalhoub? I tell people, you can recite certain things. It's a gift and a curse. It's a gift, a curse and a gift. That's kind of what it is. Yeah.
Matt, man, we just had a great guest on, and Ahmad Hawkins, man, who covers UVA football and basketball and boxing and other stuff. Man, he's a 757 legend.
Dude,
but you have been a legend to me since the days of when you were on the radio back home, man, and just covering all the high school sports, man. And just I've had you on the Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight series, and I watch everything you post. I listen to you from up here when you were doing radio, man. So we want to get you on today with Danny and I, man, and get some takes on Division 5, Division 4, Division 6 high school football. A lot of changes. We talked before you came on. Danny and I were talking about conference realignment and everything, but the VHSL has always been one step ahead with all the conference realignment and everything. So, let's start with Division 4. You can cover the whole state. Like I want to talk contenders, teams to watch out for, man. That's an interesting division to me because Phoebus High School, the two-time defending Division 3 state champs, are now in Division 4. And Division 4 has Verina and I believe Dinwiddie, correct?
Correct. And even in that same region, Dwight, you've also got King George with two stud wide receivers who are committed to Power 5 ACC Big Ten schools here with Mekhi White, Chance Wiggins, and King George can sling it. They played Dinwiddie in a classic playoff game. So you got that region 4B is really tough. Even Eastern View you don't sleep on because they've been good. But yeah, I just watched Phoebus last week in a scrimmage, and their defense is nasty as it was last year. And you grow up in the PD, so you know about nasty defenses, whether it be the Hampton Crabbers, the Phoebus Phantoms from 2008. They had one last year with Jordan Bass, who went to Pitt. Michael McMullen went to JMU, and they got Anthony Reddick returning, who's a Maryland commit, as well as Travion Stevenson, an Old Dominion pledge. They look as good, if not better, defensively, which is high praise because they did some historic stuff statistically. They bring back 7-8 starters. Brendan Thompson's a name to watch out as a breakout kid on that defense to go with the returnees, obviously, like Reddick and Stevenson, and then Keontae Gray in the secondary, Cardo Underwood. They can all make plays. And they're going to be battle tested because they've got a huge benefit game coming up, which people are already talking all over social media about with Maury, who's one of the favorites in Class 5. And oh, by the way, they play a traditional Tidewater power from the 757 and state contender and Oscar Smith in game number 1 right there out of the chute in September. 2 years ago, they went to Chesapeake, got slaughtered. They gave the slaughtering to Oscar Smith last year on a Saturday at Darling Stadium in Hampton. So this is kind of the rubber match, if you will. And they may not see a team in the PD unless, say, Warwick is that team that emerges and they won a regional championship last year that will give them, a test that they feel like will be playoff caliber in the regular season slate that they have. So I feel like Phoebus, you look at them, they're right there with Dinwiddie. Dinwiddie's got a huge matchup with the team from Ohio, Ted Ginskool, and Harry Dalton's back, who scored like 60 touchdowns a season ago as a sophomore, converted from running back as a freshman to quarterback as a 10th grader. But the way Phoebus's defense, as you know, defense wins championships. It's hard to see that. And I think their path getting out of Region A, nothing against the Churchlands, the War Hills, some solid teams, they haven't proven themselves as state contenders like, say, a Varina or even a King George, teams of that ilk. So I feel like Phoebus's path to get to the state semis, dare we say the final, may be less difficult to navigate than, say, whoever comes out of Region 4B. And that same could be said on the other side of the state with 4D, where Salem is that top dog year after year with Peyton Lewis, a Tennessee commit, the linebacker who's one of the nation's best, and Chris Cole. He's making a college decision soon. And 4C's got some quality teams from Nova, but Salem's been there before, and they've gone through the rigors just like Phoebus has.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, I'm a Nova guy, so I tend to pay attention more to the teams from up there too. And we're not on to Division 6 yet, so I'll hold my biggest questions for when we get to that portion of our discussion here. But Division 5 is very interesting too, right? Between Highland Springs, Stonebridge, two absolute powerhouses.
Highland Springs is 6 now.
They went up to 6 now. Okay,
yeah,
so we
6.
have to save that because they've just done too much winning at the Division 5
Pretty
level.
much.
But yeah, no, but I mean Stonebridge has always been one of those teams that's been a perennial contender at that level as well. So I'm curious as to who some of those best teams are.
Well, it's funny. And Mickey Thompson, one of the best coaches in the state. I mean, the guy's got, like, I've lost track of it, 16, 18 regional championships. People got on him for years because he didn't win the state championship. But folks, I mean, he has a couple. He has 3 now, I think it is. He lost to some great teams in those state championships, from Highland Springs and Lake Taylor with Jalen Holmes and Phoebus with its studs. Like, he didn't lose to Chop Liver.
Tyrod Taylor and Hampton.
Yeah, Hampton with Tyrod. I mean, like, you're losing to guys that played in the league from Tidewater and Richmond. Hello. And, Greg Dortch, Kavon Wallace, that were catching touchdowns left and right for the Springers. And then the Maury team, that Keandre Lambert, who's one of the best receivers in the Big Ten now for Penn State. And they almost came from 4 scores down to win that game, tie that game. So got them on a heroic play at the end at Old Dominion a couple years later. But I feel like there's a couple teams emerging in that Class 5 in the North that maybe, if not ready to unseat Stonebridge, but they're getting to that point where they can say, we're a big dog. And the two that I'm circling, Independence is getting a larger enrollment. You remember a few years ago, guys, they were a Class 3 school, and they're producing some college athletes. Sent one to North Carolina this past year, and Julian Randolph, Max Randolph there. They have some guys that are really good. And Briarwood's coached by a guy in Mike Burnett, who won state championships before. Briarwood's Broad Run. He's been in the big game before. Tuscarora and Broad Run. He's now at Briarwood's. I think Briarwood's is a team to watch out for, along with Independence. Those two are knocking on the door. And even Patrick Henry Roanoke out in the western part of the state has got some speedsters and some talent. They got a linebacker committed to Notre Dame and Bodie Cahoon. Bring back their quarterback. And Joey Beasley. So they're going to be right there in the mix and in the conversation. So the favorites are clearly in 5 now with Highland Springs elevating. It's Maury and it's Stonebridge. Now, Green Run's been there before. They got to replace some key guys. They've obviously got Keelan Brody Adams, the Virginia Tech commit. They have some speedsters. Will their new quarterback be as good as Kevin White? They figured to be the team coming out of Region A. And then that Region 5, see that Highland Springs leaves, feels like it's up for grabs, whether it's Matoka, who's a team on the rise from Richmond, LC Bird, who people know about their smash mouth running game over the years. They don't have that one marquee name guy at the back spot or on defense they produced, if you will. But Coach Tedder's got a nice program there. And then Patrick Henry Roanoke is in that region now. So they could be the team that could eventually find their way. They get through the schedule and get a right seed. So you start with Maury and Stonebridge now, but there are some teams lurking in the background that are worth paying attention to and watching to see if they can take that next jump. And in particular, a couple more from Tidewater, too, that I want to mention besides the Nova teams. You got Warwick, who moves up from Class 4 to Class 5. They have one of the very best juniors in the state, Messiah Delome, and Kings Fork, who's a couple years removed from winning a championship at the regional level. They have one of the best 2025 running backs in that loaded class with Javon Ford. Great group of running backs in that class with Gideon Davidson at Liberty Christian and Jeff Overton at Freedom. The list of guys goes on and on and on. Harry Dalton, I mentioned at Dinwiddie, and Javon Ford's in that conversation, the top 4 or 5 running backs in the state. So there's some teams that from, I would say, 3 through 10 in our top 10s that we do, they're going to be at least interesting to watch and worth paying attention to.
Matt, you mentioned Independence real quick. Dwight, I just
no, go ahead. You good?
Still,
you good.
Are they're still coached by RJ Windows?
He's actually not. He's not actually the coach at the moment. They have an interim coach who has taken over for him, TJ Butler. So he's the interim head coach. They may have Coach Windows return at some point, but I know Coach Butler likes his group he's got coming back. I mentioned Max Randolph, big stud tight end for them. They've got some pretty good skill position guys. Got to build some depth in the trenches, which you always have to when you play Stonebridge, because that's just the bottom line. And last year they weren't a playoff threat, but they have the talent, the pieces there. And I think there's enough teams on the schedule that if they get on a little 4, 5, 6 game winning streak, there's not as big a gap with them and some other teams that say Stonebridge has seen in recent years, like, dare we say, the Mountain Views and others at that region semifinal final level, to where you can say, all right, get a couple breaks early in the game, it could be a down to the wire battle, as opposed to you get bludgeoned, if you will.
Right. Coach Windows was my defensive coordinator at Chantilly. That was why I asked.
That's crazy. I remember you were telling me that.
Yeah.
Matt, I've gotten to a lot of not bad, but intense debates with my Phoebus people in the PD, because I'm a historian when it comes to, I'm not the old guy that feels like my era was so much better, but I feel like even though Phoebus has been able to dominate, and we're talking the last 2 state championships and even the PD, I think I was told, I don't know how accurate this is that they haven't lost a district game since 2016 or 17. I don't know how accurate that is. Somebody threw that out there, but the point I've been getting at, and I've been intrigued, and I want to touch on 2 Division 5 teams before we get to Division 6, one of them being Warwick. I keep hearing about Warwick can challenge Phoebus, and Warwick is right there, and they have the team to beat Phoebus. I've always felt that the PD, especially during my time, you had Bethel with those Iverson teams, Hampton High, we were about, Phoebus was good with the Womacs and the Carringtons and the Tory Edges, and then you had Ferguson with Aaron Brooks before they closed down. Then, I went to Warwick, and you had Denby. You had like 7 or 8 teams. Kickertan with Tony Jordan and all those guys. Those, a lot of guys that went D1 and high D2. I just thought the PD was so good that you were so battle tested when you went across the water to the Deep Creeks and the Norcombs, that it was really challenging, where Phoebus just runs through everybody. I think their closest game last year was against my alma mater, Hampton, and Hampton only got beat 21-0. I'm not hating on Phoebus, because what they're doing, Coach Blunt, is phenomenal. But if can Warwick really challenge them? I know it's August, we're just going on scrimmages and possibilities, but can Warwick challenge them and potentially take them out of it?
To be kind, I would say probably not. Look, the reason is, and it's not that Warwick doesn't have a good team, because they do. Having watched Phoebus live last week, I don't know how, and this would even apply to perhaps even Oscar Smith, should they start a freshman quarterback in game 1. I don't know how you sustain drives and score and generate multiple big plays to beat them. If you get down, and Dwight, you know this when you were a part of some Glory Hampton teams, and I know that rivalry, there's a lot of love-hate, if you will, a part of the Hampton Phoebus in the 90s. Even with Bethel, you throw them in there too. When you get up 2 scores in a game, you feel like if you have an experienced defense, it's over. So Warwick has to keep that thing as close as possible. You have to probably get a score off defense or special teams. Now, they got a guy in Delome who could do that. But then the question is going to be your defense. And then again, they have, I think, a steady defense there. They have 15 starters slated to return for Warwick from last year's team that won the region championship. You're then asking them to shut down a Phoebus ground game, which is usually pretty consistent. And while Phoebus is not going to have that one guy that's going to score, 4 or 5 touchdowns in a game like Jordan Bassett at wide receiver, and they put up 45, 46 points a game, they might find a way to average 38 to 42 by getting 5, 6 different guys at the running back receiver position the ball. I think the quarterback spot, if they run into a team like, say, a Dinwiddie that can match them score for score, if it gets to a game where, and I'm not saying it's going to be in the 40s, but you have a Harry Dalton, they can play up tempo. They're used to having a different pace to them. It's a little different, ball of wax, but Warwick's going to have to play a really disciplined, mistake-free game against Phoebus because based on last year, and I know it's a brand new year, again, it all comes down to what did you do in the red zone in terms of finishing drives, scoring, and they got donut 25-0. So I feel like they might be able to hold Phoebus to 21-28. The question is going to be, can you score and can you score again?
Well, hold on, Dan. And the second part of that question is another team that intrigues me is 5 is Maury. I was at the state championship last year in Norfolk when Highland Springs got their 5th one. And I looked on the field and, Maury every year, they got players, they got talent. I saw them a few years ago when they I believe it was against Stonebridge. I feel like it was somebody they just absolutely they had that running back that was real good that they just ran through everybody. But other than that, Maury is one of those teams where I feel like, they always are going to be in it and they have a lot of talent, but they haven't always won that championship. And that's not criticizing Maury. It's just that what do you think they finished it this year? Do you, I mean, in 5, yeah, because I just think they always have talent. I mean, they are just when I looked on that field against Holland, and Highland Springs was loaded, but it wasn't like they overwhelmed Maury with athleticism. It was like both teams right there. I felt like, there was some plays here and there where Highland Springs just made it, and there was some adjustments made, a few unlucky bounces, but I feel like Maury has to be the favorite in 5, right? I know Stonebridge is up here, but go ahead.
Yeah, it reminds me, Dwight, of a few different teams, Maury, this year. It reminds me a little bit of Oscar Smith in 2011 when they had lost unexpectedly to Bayside 2010 in the region championship with all those UVA guys with Trey Nicholson, Anthony Cooper, Smoke Mizell, Quinn Blanding. And they got beat, and Rich Morgan's group came back, and they won it the next year. 08 Phoebus, which beat Stonebridge on its way to a state championship. They were not to be denied. And even Highland Springs last year, Lauren Johnson's group, having come up short a couple of times and some heartbreaking losses to Stonebridge. You got to realize that Class 5 meat grinder, that gauntlet with Maury, Highland Springs, Stonebridge the last few years. Think of some of those games that have gone to overtime, last play. Jacob Thomas makes an amazing play. Zeke Wimbush makes a great play. And in Maury's defense from last year, remember, they're missing Peyton Jones, their running back, who's hurt, who's at Duke, and Kendall Daniels, their free safety quarterback, who's a big-time 2025 stud. He was out. Now, do I think they win that game with both those guys? No. Do I think the margin is closer? Yes. This year, I think they're the top dog. I went to their college day back in May, and I counted, and this is no exaggeration, between 14 and 16 Division I prospects. Now, they've had a few transfer in. They got Ari Watford, the big stud defensive end. Fred Johnson was committed to South Carolina, who was really a late bloomer and came out of nowhere. And they have multiple quarterbacks. And if they don't go to Daniels, who's coming off the injury, they got a kid in Autori Newkirk, who last year played JV and threw 7 or 8 touchdown passes in a JV game. So now he gets elevated, but they won the ODU 7-on-7 with him. They won't have a Jones at tailback, but they've got 4 or 5 different options, and they're about 6 deep at wide receiver. I think they're as good as advertised. And I'll be honest with you, I had this conversation with Lambert. I said to him, hey, listen, I know you're upper crust guys with him and Deshaun Peele and Ty Granger. CJ Beasley was once committed to Tech, ended up going to Coastal Carolina. I said, I know you guys will say we got the ring in 2019, but this team might have more. This team might have more guys than that team. So if this team's better than that team, which went undefeated, I think Division 5 is in for a real tough test. Now, Mickey Thompson, he's one of the very best. Could he figure out a game plan and give them trouble? Absolutely. I wouldn't put it past him. But I think you got to go in thinking, Maury, it's their time because they've been knocking on the door. And I think some of the criticism from the outside folks is not fair. But Doree McCain's a very sharp head coach. I think they've had the mantra of finishing. And, you guys know how it is in football. 1 or 2 mistakes, close game, 1 or 2 key injuries. that can decide it. I remember back in, I want to say it was 2017, 2018, the 2 state championships at Liberty I covered. It was Lake Taylor Woodgrove, and it was Phoebus and Heritage Lynchburg. And the top wide receiver defensive back for both Phoebus and Lake Taylor got hurt during the game. And it was a 1-2 score game. Does it change the outcome? You never know in a game like that. I mean, Phoebus was driving. They don't have one of their guys. And Javon Harvey, who's now at Old Dominion, is not on the field for Lake Taylor. And Woodgrove just picked apart the corner spot that he wasn't there. So that happens sometimes in a state championship game. If you have a weakness, someone's going to scratch and expose it.
I just find it amazing because I look at Maury and I've seen him so many years. I'm like, when I was growing up in the 90s, Maury was known for basketball. I mean, you talking about Mike Evans and all that talent in Norfolk, the city itself, you could do a documentary on the basketball players from Norfolk. But then, of course, in the last decade, Maury football has been right there. And I mean, I saw them, I was like, man, they got athletes. So, I mean, and actually, don't they play Highland Springs again this year in the regular season?
Maury, yeah.
They play, it's funny, they play him game 2. It's going to be a must-see. And listen to Maury's first 3 matchups. By the way, after scrimmaging Gonzaga, who they allegedly beat 56-7, and they got Phoebus coming up in their benefit game coming up. They have Wise out of Maryland, September 1st. They host Highland Springs September 8th at Powhatan Field. Then they travel to Dinwiddie with the Horse and the Cannon on September 15th to see Harry Dalton, Billy Mills, and the Generals. And oh, by the way, your district opener, it's that guy, Hank Sawyer, with 3 state championships and a kid who's a 6'7" giant committed to Syracuse and Elijah Moss, Washington. That's the, dare we say, breather game. And that's not a breather.
Oh, my gosh. But listen, this is why I told you, Danny, we jumped on. This is my favorite time of the year, man.
Yep.
Getting ready to go into my birthday month in September, but I got to get the app. Before we let you go, and we got to touch on your new show, but before we touch on your new show, congratulations on that. We're going to touch on that before we let you go, Mike and Matt. Division 6. Danny grew up here in Nova, played at Chantilly. Northern Virginia football and basketball over the last 10 years has emerged. It's no longer, okay, yeah, you guys, you had Westfield those 3 years that gave Oscar Smith, all they wanted and won 3 states. Now you have a lot of talent up here. Freedom, my guy, Daryl Overton, who I've had on, has just created a monster of a program. And they set records and broke Hampton High, Manchester records, and it was not a fluke. And they have a lot of D1 talent. But the story up here, and really, and there's a lot of stories in VHSL, the debates on the message boards and Facebook and Twitter is if and when they meet Highland Springs. But you still also have your Battlefields, your Patriot football has been knocking on the door. Them in Battlefield. Battlefield got to the States a few years ago and played Oscar Smith. You have Madison. You have your Fairfax teams. Fairfax High School was really good last year. There are a lot of stories up here. But the question is, who's going to dethrone Freedom? And if they meet Highland Springs, and I'm tight with both Daryl and Lauren Johnson. So I'm just sitting here, me and my son, just like we're counting down the days. What are your thoughts on Division 6? Because for years it was Division 5 is loaded. Now you can make an argument it's now Division 6 with the new realignment.
I tell you what, that is the dream matchup for the state championship this year. Freedom and Highland Springs. And whoever I rank 2 is going to be extremely angry at me, and I'm going to be the meanest, worst idiot in the world. Because, and by the way, I mentioned how the schedule's front-loaded with great games. I think the power in Class 6, and this is not to diminish the teams in Region 6C, that Occoquan, which has your Fairfaxes, your South Counties, your Lake Braddocks, your 6D, which has your Centerville. I know they lost some guys, but John Schill's done a good job there. Westfield, which was a big-time power for many years under Tom Burbank, and then Kyle Simmons continued it. You've got Madison, who's carried it with Justin Counts now. I think the power has shifted to Prince William on the Northern Virginia side for Region 6B with your Battlefields, your Patriots. Obviously, Freedom's the monster. Even Gainesville's going to come up. And then in Tidewater and Richmond for 6A. Think about your 6A playoffs for a second. You got Highland Springs, all right? And like I mentioned with Maury, if they're not careful, they could easily be 1-3, 2-2. You slip up. You're not getting a 1 seed potentially out of that because you still got Warwick, Kings Fork, Nans River in your region. Highland Springs, you slip up a couple games. And Lauren Johnson's playing his alma mater in Miramar from Florida out of the gate. Love his son, by the way, Peanut, Brennan Johnson. I told him last week.
Yeah.
I told him covering his scrimmage last week against Thomas Dale. And I saw this on film last year, Dwight, watching their game with Martinsburg from West Virginia. he's one of the smartest linebackers I've seen at his age ever.
Yes,
I mean, he
yes.
dissects things. You watch, when I'm taking photos covering a game, I'm watching players' body language, how they react to certain situations. And he's at a different level, mentality, speed-wise, just the IQ's off the charts. And they got Christian Martin, a quarterback back, who was pretty flawless. He's committed to the Terps. You look at their schedule with Miramar, and you got Maury, and even Manchester. If they lose a couple games, you could find yourself in like a 3 or 4 seed. And guess who else you got in your region? You got Oscar Smith.
Yep.
You got Thomas Dale. You
Yep.
got Western Branch. You got Manchester. If you got like a 4-5 first-round matchup of Highland Springs, Oscar Smith, have fun with that.
Yeah.
And Oscar Smith, respectfully, has owned that division. I mean, Freedom are the newcomers. Highland Spring has been dominating Division 5, but Oscar Smith, they have owned that division. And, of course, we talk about Westfield. I'm just talking about that region, I should say, respectfully, that region. Yeah.
To answer your question or get back to kind of close on it, what I would love to see in a state championship dream matchup, which I think we will get, barring everybody stays healthy, and you never know in a long 15-game marathon, it's not a sprint, it's a really long journey, is, Highland Springs has a very prolific offense. They're known for the wide receivers. Freedom has some dudes that will come at you defensively, but that Freedom offense with Tristan Evans back at quarterback, Jeff Overton, who's Reggie Bush-like at running back, flex him out to receiver, all those receivers they got back with Juju Preston, you name the guys, Aaron Duncans. Oh, yeah, they're just loaded. Elijah Reed against that Highland Springs defense, which, let's not forget, they've produced a lot of good DBs over the years.
Oh, yeah.
They got Johnson at linebacker. I want to see that chess match with Coach Simmons as the DC against Overton's offense and Lawrence, how that goes, because that to me could just be off the charts good. It will feel like a college level game in a state championship at Old Dominion, should they both get there. And there are teams that are just salivating to try to be that team, whether you're Oscar Smith, who wants to get back to that mantle, the Western Branches, the Dales, the Manchesters, the Battlefields, the Victors, that are trying to be the one to say, I'm going to show you it's not going to happen, because that's how Maury got there, guys. Indian River, if you remember a few years back when they had Devin Hunter and Jaquan Yulee, they were supposed to get to see Highland Springs, and Maury made its mark by knocking them off. Can't get caught looking ahead. So that's the other little storyline and subplot with all this, is there are teams out there. There are enough good teams and players that if you look past someone, you will get beat.
Yeah. This is why I love having you. I told Danny, man, we're getting the goat on here, man. I am so glad I got you on, and you can talk football with Danny and I. We will get you on later in the year when we start getting into my favorite sport, ironically, basketball. We can highlight this kid up here at Patriot and another kid at Patriot. Yeah, I'm a little biased when it comes to Patriot, but
that's
at the
okay.
same time, I love high school basketball just as much as I love high school football. Matt, before you jump off, man, congratulations. But tell everybody about your new show, your podcast, and also how can they find it? When is the official first show? I think I'm going to subscribe and never miss an episode. What do you got going on?
Appreciate it, guys, and I'll look forward to coming on with you anytime. It's with Hometown Sports Productions. We're going to be doing Hatfield and Young at the Plex. It's sort of a little bit of a morphing of what we did with our radio show, with some different visual elements that people can watch and participate to. We'll still have people that can call in and message into the show. We'll have various guests. We're going to be doing a lot of them from the Virginia Beach Sportsplex. Chuck Thornton and the great team there have afforded us this opportunity to have a show where we cover local high school, collegiate sports, and even beyond that with some of the high profile guests that are from the state of Virginia and even the 757 area code that Coach Ed Young, my partner, who's longtime basketball coach at Nance, whenever just got his 500th win. We've been doing the radio together for 13 years, and he's been involved with radio for 20 plus years, and he's been coaching for almost 40 years. So he's the young guy who's not so young, and he's the old guy. He's made me feel old, even though I'm supposed to be the younger guy. But we love having some back and forth banter, and I think just a lot of freedom with it. We'll be able to interact with people and get a chance to be unfiltered to an extent, but also get a chance to cover athletes and give them their platform that they rightfully deserve, the teams, the coaches, all the folks that love sports all across Virginia and beyond.
Again,
and they can find it on YouTube, by the way. They can find it on YouTube. It'll be on Virginia Beach Sportsplex. We'll also have it on VirginiaPreps.com. We're working on getting it on Spotify, through social pages with Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. So you'll be able to find it all over once we get up and rolling. The first show should be recorded probably We're going to record it Tuesday night. We'll do a preview episode for football teams around Tidewater. We'll also touch on Coach Young's adventures in Memphis with the NCAA Basketball Academy and the 7-7 kid that he met and tried to recruit to come to his school unsuccessfully, and just have some fun. So.
You know, Matt,
it's
going to be, that's crazy. It's going to be a success, man. And I'm glad God is blessing you, because I told you a few weeks when we talked, I'm not going to get into it, but I was pissed off, but I knew God had a bigger plan. This is going to take off because you have been great. And a shout out to you and Coach Young. You got a fan in me always, man. And I appreciate what you do for high school, not just football and basketball, but high school sports, and all the student athletes and their families appreciate. I speak for many when I tell you we appreciate and we love you, and everything you do, man. It's not easy, and you make it look easy. And it's just great because I love high school and college sports to death. And it's just great, man. I cannot wait to get on. And then again, I know I'm going to see you on other stuff, man, the Kirk and Bird show and Nova Legends. That's the great thing about the podcast community, man. You know, you're one of those guys everybody wants to have on. So as this thing unfolds here in another week or so with the kickoffs, it's going to be great, man. It's going to be really good, man. So appreciate you.
Well, it's funny. I hope I'm not taking up too much of your time here, but I told Chuck and the people, even Coach Young, it was something I was brainstorming about doing for a long while now, a podcast. Hadn't gotten around to it, and I think it just has so many unlimited opportunities with it. I'm going to have to get Coach Young a Twitter, which will be dangerous. But Dwight, I so greatly appreciate your friendship and all that you do, and thank you to you and Danny for allowing me this opportunity to come on. I'll be glad to come on with you anytime. All the best to you all with your podcast here, and it should be a lot of fun because sports year round, it never stops now. The off season doesn't exist, and there's so many different topics and stories to cover. So we're looking forward to that. And again, people, if they want to find out more, feel free to hit me up anytime.
Yes, man. That is Matthew Hatfield. Thank you again, Matt. We appreciate you, man. Well, I'll see you soon. Take care of yourself,
my pleasure,
man.
guys. Take it easy.
Thank you.
Be well.
That is the great Matthew Hatfield joining us, man. You guys make sure you check out his show. I'm telling you guys, for those who don't know what I was referring to, Matt Hatfield was him and Ed Young had a show on for 13 years on ESPN 94.1, and it was phenomenal. They covered everything, like you just heard in this segment. They covered everything VHSL high school football and basketball, had coaches on, had guys throughout DC, Maryland, the East Coast, national. So Matt Hatfield is a legend to me, and he's great. But now I'm joined by 3 phenomenal guys. I've been waiting to get them on before we get going, you know, gentlemen, because when I get with these gentlemen, we go 3 hours. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to just do our segment tonight because the big show that everybody's talking about in Hokie Nation is tomorrow. So this is going to kind of be like that appetizer you get at Outback or whatever your favorite restaurant is. We are going to introduce my guys, my homies, my brothers from Boundary Podcast, man, Boundary Corner Podcast, man. Gentlemen, Tally, Brian, Curtis, man, how you guys doing?
What's going on, Dwight? Danny, how we doing tonight?
Great. This is quite a panel, gentlemen. A nice little appetizer before tomorrow night.
Appetizer tomorrow night. Danny, Dwight, thanks for having us on. I know we tried to do this last year, but like everything kept coming up on the wrong end. So I'm glad it could happen this year. No storms rolling through Nova, no storms rolling through RVA here.
Yeah, Tally? Man. Tally. Can you hear us? Tally, you good?
Good, I'm good. Can y'all hear me pretty good?
I can't now.
Can y'all hear me?
You were frozen for a second. I didn't know if it was my connection, man. Yeah.
Okay. You know, in Alabama, man.
Oh, you freezing up again?
Sometimes this Alabama stuff don't work too good.
Yeah. You freezing up. You as they say, you in the matrix. You in the blender. Yeah. Okay, I think you might be good now. There you go. Move around a little bit.
He's moving now.
Yeah. B, how you doing, man?
Oh man, living the dream, man. Living the dream. Having a nice Monday. Always good to come on and talk with you. Looking forward to what we're gonna chop up tonight. Looking even more forward to what's gonna happen tomorrow. So it's just gonna be a nice little Monday, Tuesday combo here.
We'll keep it simple tonight, man, because I want to save all the goodies for y'all show, but this is a pleasure for me. I jump on y'all stuff all the time, man, when you guys are live on Facebook. And I told you guys, I'm gonna say this for our viewing audience, even though our audience are the same. I want to say this, man, for people that's listening or even watching, when we air this, you guys are killing it. I love your insight. I think y'all are killing it, man. I love the fact that y'all added my brother Tally, who is a great Twitter space host. It's none of that foolishness, man, and all that. I mean, we joke a little bit, we talk trash, but when you're on a Twitter space, man, it's kind of like you gotta be strapped. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have that chair from Montgomery. Because sometimes you gotta like let somebody know, you get a little bit out of pocket, but he lets people talk. But this time me and Danny get to ask you guys questions, man. And I want to jump into it, man. We are not that far away. Curtis, I'll start with you, man, and then Danny, you can go, and then we'll do like we always do. But Curtis, man, I was watching your stuff. You were talking about pride and and him winning the offseason and needing to win the regular season, man. Can you speak a little bit more about that? I know that's not a shot at Coach Pride, man, but just talk about a little bit more of that, because I'm in agreement, man. Like, I think the recruiting is taking off. A lot of stuff he's doing, I pretty much knew he was going to do. I know there was some cynics and naysayers, man, but when you talk about winning the offseason and taking that to the regular season, elaborate a little bit more on that.
Well, you talk about winning the offseason. You've already said it partly there, the recruiting. We already see Virginia in the pickup. Brody down at the 7-5. You see some pickups from Highland Springs, from your neck of the woods in Northern Virginia. So you've got that along with all the just community events he's doing. He is the face of Virginia Tech football. He's out there. He was at the Special Olympics golf tournament over the weekend out in Roanoke. That's huge. But then when I say you've got to win in the regular season, do I expect to win 11 games and be competing for an ACC title? No. But I want to see progression this year. I want to see the steps taken inside the program. We were 3-8 last year with 3 close losses. We didn't get a chance to play UVA due to that tragedy that happened. Probably would have been favored there. So I think we're closer than people think we are. And the thing is, can we get over the top? And when you get in that 1-score game late, can you put the nail in the coffin of your opponent? That's what I'm looking for Coach this year. And I think for me as a fan, I think it's reasonable to say we have to make a bowl game this year.
Yeah. I think that's a reasonable expectation there, Curtis. And Brian and Tally, you guys can each, I think, take this next question that I'm going to ask, because it's more general. And we had Ahmad Hawkins on the show, a former UVA standout, one of Dwight's guys, before you guys came on. And one of the things I think that is sort of hindering the expectations for a program like UVA this year are their first 4 games. They have a brutal 4-game stretch to open the season, right? But for Tech, if we look at this from the Hokies angle, I actually think they have a very favorable first 4 games to open the season, opening up with ODU. Purdue's probably the toughest team among those 4 squads that they open up with, considering what they were able to do in the Big Ten last year. But I guess, Brian, start with you. Those 4 games, how well do you think they can prepare this team for going through the ACC and like Curtis was saying, taking a step forward and winning some of those closer games that they weren't able to get over the hump on last year?
Yeah, I think the first 4 is the statement that's going to kind of set the tone for what the ACC is going to be about it this year, because you got the 4, you got ODU, you got Purdue, at Rutgers, at Marshall. At Marshall I don't like so much, but I think we're going to make a statement against ODU after what happened last year. I think that's going to be a statement game. That's going to be a game that Pride wants to go out there and put a stamp on to start the year. Purdue, the entire Boundary Corner podcast is going to be at Purdue. Nice. Excited about that. So it's going to be a good game. Probably the best roster top to bottom in that non-conference slate, but also a lot of things in flux, from quarterback, new head coach, new schemes across the board. So whether they're going to have the kinks ironed out at that point, that's going to be the big question. I think we might be able to pull one there, even though on paper they probably have a little bit of a better roster. Rutgers, Shiano always gets those guys to play well, and it's in Rutgers, but I think we got a chance at that one too. And then like we said with Marshall, they've got some good pieces there, but it is a G5 opponent. It's one that we should be able to take care of, but playing in Marshall, that's going to be that's a tough one because we're gonna get their absolute best efforts.
Yes.
That's the thing that has me a little worried about Marshall is that's gonna be their Super Bowl. So I'm trying to hope. I hope he pulled that one out, but that's the one I'm probably most concerned about because it's a no-win situation for us. If we lose to Marshall, it's awful. If we beat them, we're supposed to beat them.
Lose for sure. Tally, what do you think, man?
First of all, am I still lagging? Am I
No,
good?
not right now. No,
We got you.
You seem okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so just to get back on what Brent said, I mean, and Curtis as well. It's like watching the team or anybody who watches like college football a lot, watches sports. When you have a team and they start playing it's kind of a progression of they're gonna lose a lot of games, lose big games, or lose big, and then they go to losing small, and then when you take that next step, you start winning small, and then you start winning big. Good team to go by and look at that is like Florida State. 2 years removed, Florida State lost to Jacksonville State. My alma mater. They lost to Jacksonville State 2 years removed. So, like, it's not like you just try to lose. You just, this team is just amazing. Like, you got to start winning some of those close games that we lost last year. So now, when you look at the schedule, every game is a toss-up game. Except for maybe one or two. I've seen people games like Pitt. While I think Pitt may have a little bit better roster than us, and maybe a little farther ahead. Well, a lot of people still have those games as toss-up games. So, if you have, the coaching staff that we have, and we have the momentum that we have, we just got to go out in the field and we got to go win some of those toss-up games. Kind of what Curtis said. I mean, what I've been telling the guys, which I have a good feeling about this season. I feel like we're going to take the next step, but it's like you got to get to the bowl, especially with all this conference realignment talk and all this stuff going on. You gotta go out, and Pride has to go out and coach teams and win those games. And he was very candid when he came on our podcast and said, I made some mistakes my first year. It wasn't just the roster. We lost games because of coaching. We lost some games because we ran out of gas. But this year I kind of feel like they revamped, and he's gonna learn from those mistakes, and we're gonna push forward.
Yeah, man. I want to, and to me, the biggest step in going forward is the quarterback position. I know, Tally, when you had your post game Twitter Spaces, you always said, "Hey, Vic, Dwight, now come on, now you still on that Grant Wells train?" And I said, "I am," and it's slowly but surely. I was looking for the exit, but I still stayed on it only because of this, and I feel like the offensive line was, if I'm being nice, they weren't good. If I'm being honest, most of the season they were terrible. And that was disappointing because I was on the Rudolph train because I thought what he did at Wisconsin. But as I've said on your Twitter space, and you guys have talked about on your great podcast, I felt like there were too many uncertainties, pre-naps, penalties, guys where they were terrible in blitz pickup. They couldn't get to the second level. They had critical errors and crucial downs, such as 3rd and long, 2nd and short. With that being said, though, I've always felt, and we said this to Ahmad Hawkins about UVA, and the same thing goes with Virginia Tech. Historically, and Curtis, I'll start with you, and Brian and Tally, you guys, I do want you to answer this. This is a bit of a tough question because you guys aren't coaching, but historically, Virginia Tech, when we've had at worst an 8-win season to 9, 10, 11 wins, the quarterbacks were solid to elite to very good. You had, your Jim Druckenmillers, your Tyrod Taylor's, obviously, him and Mike Vick are exceptional. Even your Grant Knowles, he was an 8-win quarterback, and you had, other guys like my guy from Williamsburg, Brian Randall, who led the Hokies to 2004 ACC regular season champs. I just feel like quarterback play, even Gerard Evans, say what you want to about him leaving early, the guy was dynamic. He set records. Logan Thomas, who wasn't a natural quarterback, but then after that, it was a revolving door. It was just, and we could talk about Fuente, but to me, the quarterbacks had moments, but we haven't had stability at quarterback. I like Grant Wells. I think you can win with him. But one thing me and Mike talked about on the Vic 757 show, talking all things tech, and we talked about it even during our group chats, and we talked about on the phone after and during games, is I never felt like Grant Wells was certain he could be the guy. He never looked comfortable going to the line of scrimmage. He never looked comfortable. I don't know if it's because, Marshall, whatever. And the Marshall game is huge because he's going back to where he came from. So that's a huge game. So Curtis, I'll start with you and then B, and then Tally, you can round it out. The quarterback position, if he wins the job, Curtis, and he's our quarterback, how long do you give him before Tyler Bourne has to make a change? And can we win this season with him? I know the O-line, the running backs, but we got playmakers and receivers now. Yeah. We have a better running back room. The offensive line is supposed to be improved. How long do we give him? And can you win? If he wins the job? If he wins the job,
depending on what happens the first 3 games, because they are winnable games. That's one. That's the big one. It's not like we're playing Tennessee, Florida State, Oregon. You're playing ODU, you're playing Purdue, and you're playing Rutgers. You're not playing a tough lineup, but it's also how he plays. Now, if you say we're 2-1 and people are screaming bench him, but I look at his numbers are 3 touchdowns to 1 interception, Grant Wells probably didn't lose you those games. Other parts of the things did. So it's not only how he come out of the gate, but it's how he performs, because I was looking at some stats the other day. Grant Wells is a 1.5 to 1 touchdown to turnover. Nobody wins games like that. Nobody. You could put him on Georgia, and if he has 1.5 to 1, they're going to struggle with some teams. You can't win games like that. So to me, give him the first 3 if he wins the job. But maybe Brian will have something about winning the job, because Brian's been harking about Prones all the time.
So is this where I can take over here? I'll take over here. You're kicking it over to me. I like that. So I give him through the first 4, and I want to see how he comes out against ODU. I need to see not a 4 or 5 turnover game like we saw last year. We need to see a consistent game. I want him to put up some numbers. He doesn't have to do anything gaudy, but he needs to protect the ball against what should be an inferior defense compared to what we saw last year. They lost some pieces, so I think there's some opportunity there from him to kind of bounce back from that, probably his worst game of the season last year overall, when you look at turnovers and overall performance. I think Purdue, he just needs to play clean. I think that's the big thing for me against Purdue. Play clean, keep the ball out of their hands, let our defense do some stuff, because I don't think they're going to score a ton of points. I think that offense is still going to be trying to find their way. You got more of a defensive-minded head coach now, so I think that's going to be an opportunity there. I'd like to see us at least be 2-2 through this first 4, and I'd like to see him get a win at Marshall. If I don't see that, I'm going to be a little concerned. I think that, back to Curtis's point, is that some of this is going to be the how just as much as the wins and losses. And I think the big thing I need to see is better decision-making overall, not just throwing the interceptions, but finding the open man, a little bit more confident in the zone read game to keep and use his legs more. We didn't see that as much last year. It looked like everything was a give unless it was a wide open lane or a called run to the quarterback. So if we see a little bit more of that, I think his confidence didn't show up in the games the way I think it did on the practice field, because you hear people talk about him practicing. Like, he sounds like he goes out there and crushes it, but when the lights are on, it doesn't happen. So that's what I need. I need to see him put a good tape out there when the lights are on.
Do you think, before Tally answers that, do you think he wins the job?
You know what? I don't know. I still think Drones could win this out. And the reason I say that, I don't think there was a big gap in terms of the actual grade I would give Drones versus Wells when I looked at the spring game. Obviously, I'm not privy to what's going on in practice. I'm looking at kind of one tape and highlights here or there. So I'm looking at that, and I think Drones' ability with his legs, him being a little bit more seasoned in terms of the read option game, and just his size and durability, if it's at all close, put Drones out there, put one out there, because he gives you a little bit more of a dynamic element to that offense that you're not going to get with Wells. And And the big thing for me is that has Drone's progression in the offense in terms of picking up the scheme and being at the same, not at the same level, but as close to where Wells is with knowledge of the offense as he can be at this stage in his career at Virginia Tech. If that's close and everything else is kind of, right at that same level, I say you roll with Drones because he's got, more eligibility for your team, and he gives you a little bit of a different element with the offense that you're not going to get with Wells. And Tally, I guess I'm kicking it over to you now.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna wait till you was done. But I mean, where do I start, man? I mean, if Grant Wells walks out and he's the starter, they win. That means that he showed some stuff that was what they needed to see to start, and I'm okay with that. But I feel like, I mean, when he gets to that 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, hey, you gotta go, man. Like, you can't throw 9 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. You can't go out against ODU and throw 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Like, you gotta have 3 touchdowns to 1 interception or something like that for me to let you stay in, because you went to Texas and you got this kid that you said is a dynamic quarterback, and then you got Pop Watson that goes in. Hey, listen, when you come to Virginia Tech as a quarterback, you're always going to see the comparisons to who? Michael Vick. Dynamic quarterback. That's what Virginia Tech is known for. Virginia Tech is not known for a game manager. We don't need a game manager. No disrespect to Grant Wells, but everybody gets on me on Twitter because they say, I mean, everybody would have been sorry in the offense last year. Michael Vick would have been sorry in the offense last year. I mean, I know it's only one Michael Vick, but that's what I'm telling you. If I watched Grant Wells at Marshall as well, and his knock was that he turned the ball over too much, and that's what he did last year. 4 picks in the first game. Even besides that, you're going to a game like a Georgia Tech, which is a very winnable game. We got a chance. Grant, you got your opportunity to go down and submit your starting job at Virginia Tech. And he needed about 25, 30 yards to kick the field goal. We lost the game by 1 point. He fumbles. He breaks about a 10-yard run. Don't scare the ball. He fumbles. Now, again, everybody's played the game, or everybody's played some. You are who you are. I watch my son play baseball every day, every tournament. He is who he is. I don't expect him to go out and hit home runs, but his percentage is about 700 because he's very picky with what he swings at. He is going to get a walk. He don't mind getting hit. And when he hits the ball, he's going to run it out. He's one of the fastest kids on the team. That's who he is.
Tally.
Why would I go to a coach? Go ahead.
There you go. Tally.
Yes, sir.
You're still lagging a little bit. You're getting choppier. Yeah. Because you're making some great points, but then it started to get real choppy. Go ahead.
Well, I'm gonna end it right there, just saying, I mean, a player is who he is. We've seen what Grant Wells is. If he starts turning the ball over, you got to make a change.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think that's all exactly where those expectations should be at. He hasn't exactly earned the benefit of the doubt to be left in for an extended period of time if this offense isn't moving the ball against ODU. And I expect them to, like you guys were saying, come out, make a statement in that first game, because they had to do everything wrong in that ODU game last year to only lose by a single possession and to, essentially fumble the game away, like we were saying.
And they did.
Then they did, and
it.
If there's anything that we know as Tech fans over the last several years, right, it's that there's no game that's unlosable, right? At this point, they could go and lose every game.
Well, Danny, before you ask your question to the panel, to our guys, I just want to say that I said this before on Boundaries Corner Podcast, and I said this on Tally's Twitter Spaces. I feel like when you guys said they did everything to lose the game, I think it comes down to, and I've said this before on other platforms I've been on, the guys from the previous regime did not know how to make game-winning plays. They don't. Listen, I'm not, and this is when I'm going to pull my OG card out, because I did win on every level. I came to Tech and I knew what the standard was. I created the standard, me and the guys I played with. The expectations people have now is because of what we did. And the guys that came after me, including my cousin, other guys like that, the expectation wasn't just to go to the bowl, it was win the conference and play in back then they were called Alliance Bowls, then BCS Bowls. And my son, who is now a rising senior, he'll be a senior on Monday next week. He says to me when we dropped our second of 4 interceptions, he says, man, these dudes don't know how to make game-winning plays. And I just feel like, they just don't. I see Curtis and those guys shaking their heads for those listening. It just, it wasn't, the culture, the mindset wasn't there. I always mention when Dorian Strong got the pick against Boston College 2 years ago in the end zone, the first thing he did was look to the sideline to see if he should take it out. Where Brandon Flowers, and I know that's a legend, but all the guys, even guys like Garnell Wiles, Willie Powell, they didn't even look. It was like, I'm getting my money. I'm getting my bag. And the one thing I'm looking for besides leadership in a few weeks when we kick this thing off is sense of urgency and do these guys know how to make game-winning plays. But go ahead, and I just wanted to throw it out there, man, because I just feel like that's something that was lost. But go ahead, Danny. I mean, it's just sometimes I get frustrated.
I'm really glad you said that, Dwight, because I totally agree. But I think that's why I have higher hopes for this team going forward this year. There's been a lot of talk about confidence and mentality, right? There's a way that you go out and you conduct yourself when you've got that confidence instilled in you. You've got a game plan that you can execute, and you've got the guys in place to execute the plays that you need to go out and get it done. So, if 3 wins was where it was at last year, I look at the schedule, I see anywhere between 5 and 7, really. And that's what I think it comes down to. It just kind of depends on how many of those close games that they inevitably get involved in are they going to close out. I mean, is that how you guys feel?
Yeah, I'm 100%. That's how I feel for this year, because the Liberty game, and a lot of people ask why we focus so much on the Liberty game. Last game of the season, that was the plays being made. We talked with Coach Pry about it. Every single step in that fourth quarter, a play was made to win the game, not to lose the game. Where, Tally, we talked about it just a few weeks before that, the Georgia Tech game, Keyshawn King, we're inside the 25-yard line. We kick a field goal, we're up 4, we call it a touchdown, the game's over. We fumble. They go and score a touchdown. It's that. And people say, well, why you focus so much on that game? Because everything we saw, the little chunks were building. And all of a sudden, everything clicked. And it was against a good team. People say all they want to say. Oh, Liberty sucks. They weren't a good team. Liberty under Hugh Freeze was a good football team. They had some veteran leadership. They had some guys that went to the league. Don't tell me they weren't a good team. And us at 2-8 went out there and beat them.
And it's not just that. It's
go ahead, Tyler.
It's not that we just went and won that game. It was how we went about winning the game, and then the things that happened after the game. Of course, condolences to all the UVA family. We didn't get to play that game, but momentum was on our side to play them as well. And then, after that, we go into the offseason. The offseason has been a home run. We've won the offseason. They've done the things right. It looks like they've come together as a team. They went out and they got transfers. They're killing it recruiting. So that Liberty win was just that win. Why we focused on that. It looks like the program took another step to go in the way that we need to. Now, we'll see how far we've taken that step is against ODU. What are we going to do? I mean, we don't need to be in a dogfight with ODU. We need to go beat ODU by about 2 to 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, I ain't on the field. I'm watching the game, but that's just how I feel.
Saying 3 touchdowns, Tally. I'm going 3.
There we go. I like that.
I like 3.
And when I like that. I like that. But to go back to what Danny said is, he said 5 and 7. If you're gonna say 5, Danny, you got to just go ahead and say 6 and up. We don't even want anything less than a bowl game. You got to say 6 wins and up. So if you want to say 6 and 7, I'm right there with you. But I can't go along with that fact. We got to be 6 and up, baby. We got to get back to the bowl. Beamer had us go. I mean, how long did we go to bowl games?
23 years. 23
years. Come on, man. And then we missed it twice in the last 3 years.
Wait a minute. No. Curtis,
more, man.
No, I'm
20
sorry. 26? 26?
No, 27.
27.
27.
27.
Yeah, it's my
27.
fault. My fault. How do I not know that?
We cleared the quarter century mark. I'll go 6, and the 6th win will come against UVA, as it has done so often recently.
Yeah.
You know what?
I don't want that to be what it is, but hey, that's fine.
You know, I'm gonna go 7 here. I'm gonna go 7. The more I keep looking at the schedule, the more I'm like, you know, I think we pull up. So we had a bunch of games last year, 1 possession games, toss up games, games that were kind of out there, and we won one of those, the Liberty game that we just talked about so much. If we can just improve that to 50% and get a game against UVA that we didn't play last year, that's 7. That's 7. So that's what I see us being able to achieve this year. I think we can get to 7. I think a bowl game is kind of an expected outcome, a nice progression from last year. I think if you get to 7, it tells me that you're doing a couple other things good as well. It means you're winning more of those toss-up games. You're getting a little more out of your roster than may be there, which I don't think we saw a lot of last year. I think the staff was still learning the roster, and I think they were still getting adjusted to coaching together. And I think we're going to see it, especially on the offensive side, a little bit more of a cohesive scheme this year with Tyler Bowen not having as much noise in the headset as he had last year. I think with Rudolph and Glenn there, I think it's going to be a little bit more of a smooth operation there, because it will be truly the vision that he has for the offense. I know I've said that a bunch. You're going to keep hearing me say it. I think that was a big problem last year. So I like 7 games. You know, I think it's going to start with ODU. I think if we go out there, push them around a little bit, that's going to set the tone and give this team that didn't see a lot of wins last year some early confidence.
Yeah.
Well, can I throw extra point?
Go ahead, Tyler. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I want to put something in that Dwight talked about last year in one of the Twitter spaces, because after that ODU loss, like, we was on the ledge, man. I mean, I was on the way off, and Dwight came, he grabbed me by the back of the shirt, he said, "Get back, man, we got you." And then he made a call in his brother, because I'm a big dude, so he couldn't hold me by himself because he getting old. So he called his brother, Lauren Johnson, and he grabbed the other arm. He pulled back as well, because it was so many people in there that was talking about, there's no way we're gonna be able to recruit. You know, there's this. We're not gonna. And Dwight came in. Dwight said, "You can take a loss like this because I was there, and you can use that to build off of." And that's what they've done. They've taken the losses that we had, that we were losing by that much, and they went out and they recruited guys to come in. I'm talking about the kids that are already there, like Lauren Johnson's son, like Braylon Johnson, that's already pushing to get some playing time this year. How many state championships did they have with those when it came in? How many of those kids came in that were already leaders? How many of those kids came in that were already captains? That's how you learn how to win, because you go recruit winners. I'm not saying the kids on the team weren't winners. I'm just saying he went out and he recruited winners. So now when you start going into this year, the coaches got to coach like winners. That's what you went out and you sold. You went out, you get a kid like Brody Adams that's going to be coming next year. You get Chance Wiggins. We knocking on the door to get the top recruit in Virginia, or, you know, Chris Cole. You're knocking on the door to get a talent like that you know can change the dynamic of what Virginia Tech is and get us back to where we need to be. It only takes us 1 or 2 players just for us to compete in that coast that we were in, and now in that ACC that we're in. So we were able to do it for a 3-8 season. We got to get to a bowl game.
Dwight pulled us back in. Dwight and Danny, I want y'all to hear this first. I want to hear this first, because our fourth mate, Shelton Moss, pulled up the stat last week. They turned over 40% of the roster last year.
Oh, yeah, I saw that on your show.
40. You hear that?
Yeah.
So he just said it, bringing in the winners from the high school level, bringing in the transfers, kids who want to be there, who want to play for Tech. And then thinking about, and you talk about that cultural thing, Dwight, and I know that's big for Dwight, the culture, finding who is best to be there, letting them stay and letting other people out the door.
Yes. Thank you for that stat. And the thing about it is that that's not shock, because I know in the one Twitter space, some of the parents of some of the kids from the Fuente era took offense to that. That's not knocking them. It's just that sometimes it's just it's a bad fit, or your kid son has been set up for failure because he was recruited for something that he shouldn't have been recruited for. And I don't ever want to do that, because I wouldn't want nobody taking a shot at me or even my son or daughters in their respective sports. But that the truth of the matter is that you got to give Virginia Tech players. And speaking of that, man, you guys brought up a memory, Curtis, you and Tally, about the games we had. I tell you the one that hurt me the most. And I remember thinking, man, this is it. And we got him. This was a primetime game on Thursday night against a damn good NC State team. And we were smacking them in the mouth, a team that we've owned since coming into the ACC. And that's probably the other side note to this disturbing trend of Tech, is that in the last 20 games, we're 10-10 in Lane Stadium against ACC opponents. Teams like Georgia Tech, who we had battles with, but we typically beat. Even a team like Maryland, which still pisses me off because we have owned Maryland. They're not ACC anymore, but Maryland don't even like football. I live in the DMV. They don't even like football.
And Torrey Smith is talking too much up there, dude.
Yeah, that's why
he likes Target a whole lot more than he should.
Yeah, because he's too comfortable, because before that he ain't say nothing. But the NC State game had me on tilt, because for the first time I saw Grant Wells show emotion. Grant Wells showed emotion. The defense was making plays, and all of a sudden when NC State woke up, we folded. We folded. We gave away the game. We dropped picks and we folded. So I'm glad Curtis brought up that stat on that great podcast that was showed, because it is important to get guys that are winners. Speaking of that, my question for you, Brian, I'll start with you. Can answer this question. This is a bit of a tough one because there's more than one, but who's a player? I know none of us are in the practices, but somebody you saw at the spring game or summer camp, the practices that you, or even a recruit or a guy that was playing last year that you're excited to see. For me, I'll go first. I said this first on y'all podcast. You guys know who I'm about to say. I've been big on Caleb Woodson. He's from up here in Haymarket, Battlefield High School. I have been on record. I said it on your podcast in the comments when we got him. I've been big on Caleb Woodson. He's a man-child, and he at Battlefield, he went to the state champion. He's been a winner. He's got great. Every time I saw him at the gym, he works at the same gym I go to. He's been on this podcast. He's locked in, and he's part of that class that wants to take Tech back. But that's my guy. And Brian, who's the guy that Tally and Curtis? You can answer that question. Who's a kid or two players? I give you two. Are there two players or one player that you cannot wait to see this coming season?
You said a good one there with Woodson, because he's already pushing, looks like, in that 2 deep at that star position. So that's going to be, he's definitely going to make some noise. He's going to see a lot of reps this year. It's going to be nice to see him build into that role. But that's not mine. Mine's going to be Jalen Stroman, taking on a bigger role this year, taking on a leadership role in the back end of that defense. Watching him during the spring game, he was flying all over the place. He made a big pick, and we talked about it when we were watching the tape. The pick on drones when he was rolling to the right near the end zone. That wasn't a play that he was supposed to make. That was just him instincts taking over and being where he needed to be to make a play on that ball. So that's a big one for me. The other one, let's flip over to the offensive side of the ball. And Curtis probably knows who I'm about to say here. Daquan Wright.
Every time.
I'm excited to have a joker tight end get a lot of run this year, because he didn't get a lot of run early, had a little bit in the middle of the year last year, got a little nicked up. We didn't see a whole lot of him at the last 2 or 3 weeks, but I'm excited to see him healthy out on the field making plays this year, because dude is dynamic and a matchup nightmare.
Great play. I forgot about my guy. I don't know how Jalen Stroman. He's from up here. That's two Nova guys, by the way, Danny. Jalen Stroman and Caleb Woodson. Prince William, two Prince William guys. And I saw Jalen play in high school. Obviously, you guys know I'm close to Greg Stroman and his family, man. So Jalen made plays last year. I think he came off the bench a lot of times. So I'm eager. That's actually two great names. Tally, who's the guy, or are there two guys, or is there one guy you can't wait to see, or is there we should be on the lookout for?
I'm gonna start on the offensive side of the ball. I'm gonna say Daquan Felton, the transfer that came in from Norfolk State. A little bit of we haven't had wide receiver that size in a while. 6'5", above 200 pounds, can go hit the jump ball. From Portsmouth, like, come on, man. You already know he got that dog in him. So the last receiver I seen that was great on jump balls was probably Kuma. Eric Kuma was a beast when it came to 50-50 balls. So I'm just hoping, and I ain't saying he's going to get 1,000 yards. I don't know how many yards he'll get, but if we can use him as a possession receiver that can go up and get those 50-50 balls, it's a nightmare. Like, we haven't had that in a while. So I'm gonna use him as my offensive guy. And then defense, I'm going to go with Anton Powell. Like, we need an edge rusher. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know it's 2 transfers, but it's a reason why I'm picking them as well. Like, that's 2 Virginia guys that maybe shouldn't have got away from Tech. If we were recruiting the right way, they might not have got away the first time. But Pry comes in and he goes and he finds those kids, and they're here, and now they putting on for the state. So, I mean, I've seen Powell play at Florida in the SEC against some of the best linemen there, are some of the biggest linemen, and he was productive. I've seen him in practice, and he's got some nasty moves. So if we can get an offense to have to scheme around one of our defenders, one of our defensive ends, I mean, it makes us a little bit more dynamic, and it frees up that back end where they're not guarding people for 20 seconds. You know what I'm saying? You got to get some pressure on the quarterback. So that's my 2 that I'll say.
By the way, before Curtis gives his guy or his guys, the kid out of Norfolk State, I played arena football with his dad. Boone. His dad was a phenomenal tight end at Wilson High School, played with Aaron Sparrow, a great quarterback out of Portsmouth. And he's also related to the great running back Chiron Stiff. So, see, little nuggets. I'm giving y'all nuggets.
That's some blood right there.
Man, drop them on those.
Yeah, man. I'm just saying. Hey, look, please, everybody listening, watching, don't take this the wrong way, but I said this on Tally's Twitter space. We got to get some goons, and I don't mean people that's running through Macy's taking Gucci, off cloak. I mean some more Daquans and Antones and some guys from them areas. Look, make no mistake about it.
Come on now.
I'm just gonna tell y'all the truth. And Curtis, one thing Beamer did, and it wasn't anything with a hidden agenda, because Roniel Whitaker spoke about this. He went into communities where Lou Holtz and other coaches did not go to, and he got guys like Antonio Freeman, where nobody was going into Baltimore City, where they filmed The Wire at. And he got Antonio Freeman. He went to Eastern Newport News. My cousin and I talk about this, and Marcus, we thought Coach Cav and Beamer were going to get robbed. They were in Ridley Circle projects to recruit Mike and sit down with Brenda and have a cup of coffee. So that's the one thing I knew from the previous regime. I'm sorry, I know I'm going along with it, Danny, but that's one thing we didn't do. We stopped going into the heart of Virginia, because I'm a Virginia guy. I love the Mid-Atlantic. I'm in the DMV, but when we go into those places in the South, like Dade County, Luther Maddie and those guys had gold fronts, man. Daddy Nichols and all those guys, they were built different. But it wasn't like they were ignorant. It was just that we gave them, Virginia Tech, an opportunity to get education and play big time football, and they rewarded Beamer and company by, excelling on and off the field. And we kind of got away from that. Right. When somebody posted, I don't know who it was, that night we beat Florida State, I'm like, Trayvon Hill, Mook Reynolds, and Antone, what's the kid? What's his name? The DB that was real. Antoine, I forgot his name, man. He was there with the Edmonds brothers and Stroman with Mook Reynolds and them, but the kid was phenomenal, man. So anyway,
Curtis, the kid from Charlotte. The kid from Charlotte. Yeah. Oh my God. You know what I'm talking about, Brian. He went to the supplemental draft with the Skins.
Yes, the Skins.
Oh, hang on.
Alexander.
Adonis Alexander.
Adonis Alexander. Mook Reynolds, Adonis Alexander, Trayvon Hill. Those guys were goons in a good way. They were goons. They made plays. People thought, look, let me tell y'all for that's listening and watches. The ACC was fearful of adding Virginia Tech because of how we attacked and played teams, and we took your turf and we took your heart, and our fans took over your stadium. They were skeptical of what we brought, but they knew we're going to give you a great brand of football, man. But Curtis, go ahead, man. I'm getting excited again, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is good. This is the good stuff. This is why, Danny. This is why when we talk to Dwight, it's like a 3-hour marathon. It ain't 30 minutes straight. All right, I'm gonna start on offense, and I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna cheat on offense a little bit because I'm gonna take two, because I think the Moore brothers at left guard and center are going to bulldoze some people this year.
Pick.
That'd be nice.
Because you saw a little more last year. Freshman just moved over from the line. There were times he was legitimately pushing people out of the way. I think having that nuance on the left side, regardless who wins the left tackle position, is going to be big. My second one, and boys, we've seen it all our lives. When there is a will linebacker, like an X or like Tremaine, the guy that's built like Kalai Lawson at 6'6", that can fly around. You've seen he's looking bigger. I don't know his weight right now. He looks bigger. We remember the pick from the Georgia Tech game. You saw him mature. And now it seems like he is that guy. He is that guy. I'm hoping he plays next year, because now he was true last year, right? Was he true last year?
He was a redshirt freshman.
Redshirt last year.
Y'all, because if he has that Tremaine Edmonds type third season like this year, he could be gone. But I think that's my two. The Moore brothers on the offensive line with my two guards, my tight end here below me, and Kalai Lawson from the Valley of Virginia.
Well, no, man. Danny, I know you got the last question, and then we're gonna get to our legacy shout outs and wrap up, man. But this is why, again, I'm gonna keep it, Danny, simple. We can get to our legacy, because I will run I don't know what it is about Tally and Curtis and Brian, because I get on other stuff and I stick to the script. When these three dudes show up, or if I'm in Tally's Twitter space, I forget that I'm on a time restraint. I don't know what it is about these three dudes, man.
You be at home, man. You be at home.
Yeah,
You're like a pastor, man. When you start feeling it, you gotta go.
Tomorrow night when I'm on y'all show, I'm gonna just bring a little bit of that. But Danny, go ahead, man.
Bring on the flavor. Bring on the
flavor. I don't really have any questions left. I was gonna say if I had a position group or players that I was gonna keep an eye on for this season, it's really where I've had my eyes on the last several seasons, and I think it's actually most connected to what Curtis was saying in the offensive line. I want to see us run the football again. Please get back to running the ball. We don't even need a 1,000-yard rusher, right? And the last of which I think was Trayvon McMillan, right?
Yeah,
he had a flash in the fan.
Oh,
that's
right.
Herbert.
Okay. Herbert.
Yeah.
2020. I mean, it's a blur, man.
I know.
It's a shame that Lane never got to see that kid play full, or that kid never got to see Lane play full, because I think there would have been a couple games with his big runs would have completely shifted momentum, and we would have won games versus losing. Sorry.
Completely carried the offense in a couple of different games. No worries.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because it was in 2020. I feel like it gets forgotten a whole heck of a lot. But yeah, the running back position, whether it's Malachi Thomas coming back and finally being healthy, unlike we didn't get to see last year, or Tootin, the guy coming over, right, or Chance Black, whoever it's going to be. To me, it doesn't matter. And I think an effective ground game for this Virginia Tech squad will feature some version of all three of them, but just consistently do it, run the football, don't abandon it, use the offensive line to move some guys around a little bit. That's what will encourage me, is to whether or not we see this program actually taking some steps forward.
No doubt.
Yeah, Danny.
No doubt, man.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that real quick before we turn it over. Last year, we never really put a full game together with the offensive line.
Yeah.
There was no consistency. And, we talked about this some on our show. I think we talked about it some when Dwight was on with us. It looked like the offensive line was doing too much thinking. And when you're thinking too much, you're not getting to your spots. You're not doing the things that you need to do to get guys off the ball. And you see that in the offsides penalties. You see that in missed assignments. You see that in missed blitz pickup. There's a lot of thinking, but not a lot of doing. So I think some of this with the new coach, with Crook there, I think there's going to be some simplifying. There won't be quite as much information overload, and I think that's going to help the offensive line as a whole. And I think Crook just has a knack with to get some nastiness out of this offensive line.
I like that
because we missed that last year. They
I
didn't look
Dwight
nasty.
I mean, you need that. I mean, you need that Jake Grove. You need that Wyatt Teller. You need. Listen, you need. Look, you got to be an asshole. You just have to be. You got. I mean, Brian knows this. Brian knows this. I'm a family man. I'm a mental health therapist. I love people. I spend my days helping and empowering people, speaking engagements, symposiums, donating my time and my money. But when I played, I went to a dark place. Okay.
Yep. You got to have a switch. You got to have a switch.
When I played, I was, and I grew up on Mark May, Joe Jacoby, Jim Lachey, the Hogs. I grew up in that area where playing offensive line, I took pride in. Like we were big sexies. We didn't care, know. But anyway, see how they got me going again? I got to get back on schedule. Look. See, so as we wrap up this thing, this is something Danny and I do when we do the Vicktory Life Legacy Podcast, man. We're going to end this show and then I'm going to sign out, but I want you guys, each one, I didn't text Brian just to let you guys know I wanted to be organic. I'll go first while I give you guys some time to think. We end this show with giving legacy shout outs. It could be your mother, it could be a cancer survivor, it could be a teacher, it could be a Hokie, it could be a coach you played for, someone you want to just spend a minute just to shout out and recognize their legacy, living or no longer living. I think it's important to make sure that we spend a second or two to let people know how much we appreciate and love them. This is something we do every episode. This is our 23rd episode. We don't do a lot for a reason. We like to make sure it's spaced out. So I'll go first. The guy I want to shout out is a guy by the name of Andre Spate. He runs a training company in Lorton, Virginia, Northern Virginia, called Spate Ball Training. He's been one of my son's primary basketball trainers for years, since my son Isaiah was in 5th and 6th grade. He's trained my oldest daughter, Sydney, when she was a volleyball player playing club volleyball. She's now, ironically, she's a sophomore at ODU. So we got to win this game. But Andre Spate, man, is a great teacher. He's always sending my son text messages, videos to watch, books to read. If you're in Northern Virginia or the DMV and DC, you want to get training for young men, boys and girls at all levels, a Spate Ball Training, spateballtraining.com, Andre Spate. But more importantly, I wanted to make sure I shouted him out because a lot of these guys that train, it's about, this is how much it costs. This is what I do for you, your son, your daughter. But rarely do you have a guy that's going to come to your graduation, to your fish fries, that's going to come up and make sure you're doing good in school, that's going to pray for you, that's going to give you insight. He teaches mental health, meditation. He's big into that mantra of just having that mentality of a holistic approach, so to speak. So he's my legacy shout out, man. Just want to shout out Andre Spate. I really appreciate him and all the things he's done for my family and all the kids in Northern Virginia and the surrounding areas. Danny, you have a man or a woman or somebody you want to shout out, or a company or something?
Yeah, I can go quick actually, and I'll reiterate some things that I said earlier in the show before all you guys jumped on. And it's that my youngest brother, Bill Nokes, graduated from Virginia Tech this May. He is the third Nokes brother to graduate from Virginia Tech. So we're a family of Hokies, and he's a great kid. He's very humble. He's quiet, unlike myself and my middle brother, who both got into broadcasting and did radio in Blacksburg for several years. So I want to give a legacy shout out to him. And Dwight, something I didn't get to tell you about during our recap of me turning 30 last July. In fact, a whole month has passed since I turned 30, since the time that this was recorded. July 14th it was. But when you hit a big milestone like that, I feel like it forces you to look inward and sort of reflect on things. And my girlfriend Val, my middle brother Andy, and some other folks, there were a lot of people that helped put it together. They surprised the ever living crap out of me with a party on that day. And it was the most shocked that I've probably ever been, in the best way. And it was one of the best days of my life. So I am finding more every day that your friends and family are more and more important, and the most important thing in your lives. And I'm just grateful for all of mine, including you guys.
Yes, sir. Oh yeah, these are my vibes. All right, man. So who's up? Curtis, you want to go? You got anybody? Legacy shout out?
You got to talk to the guy that leads off the BCP every week talking, right? How about this? The Vicktory Legacy Life shout out for me is my wonderful wife, Kim. My wife has been a public school teacher for the last 18 years. She just started her first day today. By ritual, by ceremony, we take a picture at the end of the day with the kids out in front of the house, and she loves it. Again, 18 years. She's taught elementary, and this year she had some stuff go on during the summer. She had to spend some time in the hospital for a couple days, and one of the young nurses was a former student. And I said, and she at first she was like, "Oh my gosh, because you're in the hospital, things are going on." And I'm like, "But are you proud?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, she was a great kid in my class, and I could see her doing something like this. And when she saw that, and I saw like that emotion in her face, yeah. So shout out to my wonderful wife.
Oh my
That's
God,
fantastic.
that's God, man.
That's a really
That
good
is
one.
so. That is. Look at this. This might be the best ever, Danny. Go ahead, Brian.
I'm gonna throw it back and then throw it forward all over again. So my legacy shout out is going to be to Keith Goon Conlon, offensive lineman for Penn State in the mid 90s, played on the 94 team that went undefeated. He was drafted by the Colts, and after a couple bouts here and there, he ended up coaching offensive line at Hampden-Sydney College. And he took a chance on a guy that tore his ankle up his senior year of high school and said, I think you can come here and make some noise for us on the offensive line. Learned a lot from him, both about life and about football. And, he always said, as soon as I got there, he said, "Don't call me coach, call me Keith." The relationship was tight right out the gate, and just always down to earth, but always teaching you something new and getting you better. To go out there. And then years later, he's host of the Goon and Ironhead show up there at State College. And as soon as we got the news that Pry was heading down here, first text message I sent was to Keith. I was like, "You got to come on with us. We got to learn more about Coach Pry." So and he came on with us. It was a great show, and just really appreciated for taking a chance on a guy to play at the next level for a little bit and teach me things on and off the field that I don't think I would have learned otherwise. So shout out to Keith Goon Conlon.
Outstanding. Wow, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Keith
Crazy.
Boone Conlon. Pretty good name to have. I'm listening to all this stuff, man, and Danny comes on here and talks about how much of a big memento it is to hit 30. And like 30 was way in the rearview mirror.
Thanks for making me feel young, guys.
Curtis is hitting a big one in 1 week, guys. Is
that right?
Yeah.
What number is that, Curtis?
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, there we go.
The big 4-0.
Tal, you can't get out of it.
My legacy is go ahead.
I was gonna say, you can't get out of it. Go.
You good, Tally.
Yeah, I say my legacy. Yeah, I say my legacy, man, is a broad spectrum. It's just all of the former players of Virginia Tech. With that, I'm gonna throw 2 names out: Dwight Vick, and 3 names: Dwight Vick, Michael Vick, and Greg Boone. Not for what they've done on the field. I mean, Greg Boone, man, he's when I got on Twitter, man, I'm just a guy from Alabama, and you never know when Dwight talks about what he does for people mental health wise. He does that on Twitter, and he don't know that he's doing that. Because you don't know what state that people are in. People, go into college football games or sports to get a little bit of a relief from normal life. And when your team ain't doing good, sometimes it's just, it's all bad. So when you can hear somebody to come in and just pick you up and to just have a organic conversation, you don't know what that do to some people. That's why I do the spaces for people. I've had people reach out to me and talk about how much insight they've got and how good it made the day or the night after a loss. And that's because of people like Greg Boone. Greg Boone's reached out to me, and he's not very, vocal on Twitter. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, man, I really like what you're doing." He sent me a signed jersey. He didn't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I'm just a guy here from Alabama that nobody knows. Yeah, I got a signed Greg Boone jersey in my Virginia Tech stuff. The same when I say Michael Vick, it's not because of what he done on the field. Like that was one of my childhood heroes, and he came here to Huntsville, Alabama to speak. And I had a buddy that called me and said he worked at a Cracker Barrel here, and he said, "Hey man, I think Michael Vick is in here eating." I was like, "Ain't no way. It's no way." I'm at home in the bed. I hop up, and sure enough, I mean, he puts me on the phone. Mike said, "Just take your time. I'm gonna stay and wait on you." So it took me about 10 minutes to get there. Down up my market and Mike signed my jersey, took some pictures for me. And he said, "Man, I'm just thankful that I still have fans." I mean, that's the type of people that the Virginia Tech community has in it. So whenever I hear people speaking ill on what we have or what we've had, that's why I'm not trying to hear it. You know what I'm saying? When you talk about being positive about something and what something has done for you in your life, like that's the kind of stories that I have for what Virginia Tech is. So, I mean, man, if you're not getting that kind of positive reinforcement from things you're doing, you need to look in the mirror, man, because there's good people out there.
Wow. Yeah. Listen, on by far, this is the best leg. And we've had Pearson Prelo, Lauren Johnson. They're always great. This right now is number one. And this is a great way to start this week off because tomorrow night we got a great show in store with your show, Boundary Corner Podcast. I'm not even going to do any more teasers. That panel is going to be legendary and it keeps getting better. Once again, on behalf of Danny Nokes and man, we want to thank you guys for jumping on. We also want to thank Matthew Hatfield and also Ahmad Hawkins for coming in earlier. You guys are doing great work. I said it on your show last week. I believe we all connected for a reason. It's God's plan, as Drake says, but I mean that with all sincerity. It's just great to have you guys on, and hopefully we can get you on again. I know we will, and if not, I got so many people I'm trying to get on Mike's show with me. He's going to kill me because I'm trying to get you guys on again because I love y'all. I do, and I love the fact that we can have conversations, agree, disagree, debate, provide insight, and it's great to have positive, also insightful people on. So, Danny and I thank you both for jumping on, man, and my sign off, like I say every episode, man, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you leave a positive impact and a great legacy, man. Thank you guys from Boundary Corner Podcast for jumping on. Curtis, Brian, and Tally. You guys following and listening. We're on subscribe to our YouTube channel, Vicktory Life. Also, we're on SoundCloud. Make sure you check them out. Tomorrow, for the tech fans watching and listening, tomorrow, Boundary Corner Podcast. The panel is going to be off the chain. We got Sons of Saturday. Everybody's going to be on there, man. We're going to be talking more in depth about tech football. So appreciate all y'all. Thank you guys for listening. Everybody have a good evening, good morning, depending on when you're listening. All right, take care.